Hello there! What's going on, everybody? We are back with the season finale of Mando Chat, and to close out 2020 and to help bring Mando Chat to a close is the guest star that helped start it all, Mr. You may know him as the High Marshal. You may know him as BF, Brendon Franz. Welcome.
Hey, Tim.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
So we're back at it with a Mando Chat, man. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. You were the first guest, and now you shall be the last, the Alpha and the Omega. We need a new name for that. The BF.
Man,
I don't know. The BFG, the big freaking guest.
I'm good with that. Let's go with that.
All right. So all right, we got a bunch of viewers. Everybody's hanging out today, and I know this is a day early. A lot of times I will do Mando Chat on Mondays, but you know what? We just decided to do it on Sunday instead today. There's actually a number of reasons: scheduling reasons, holiday reasons. Schedules are all over the place. So if you are watching us live, we appreciate you being with us. I want to throw out a spoiler warning. Whether you're watching us live or you're watching the playback of this in the future, because this is all about The Mandalorian. We're going to be talking about all of the episodes, but primarily the final, Chapter 16, The Rescue. So this is your spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about this episode, so if you don't want to have it ruined for you, well, to be honest, I don't think anything's going to be ruined. By now, you've probably already heard some spoilers. There's at least one really, really big spoiler, and probably more than that from this episode. But it's a good episode anyway, and consider that your spoiler warning. So Brendon, what did you think of this episode?
First off, if you've made it to Sunday without getting spoilers, kudos to you.
You got some stones
already everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. I love this episode. This put a bow on everything we've been moving towards at this point, and I'm excited for where it goes from here. But if they do nothing, great. If they continue on, also great.
Yeah,
and I think that's the best conclusion you could ask for in a series, in a season, in something like that. So, man. I'm good with it. So yeah. I'm ready to get talking about it. 'Cause
yeah, absolutely.
It was too much.
This was a tough one for me. It's bittersweet because, you know, during this time of year, especially the holidays, and for what has been such a really nasty, crappy year overall, it's nice to have this ray of light, which was The Mandalorian, and it started off on such a good note. I mean, this season opener was a great episode, and we've had mostly, I mean, honestly, we've had almost all really good episodes. I think the only one that
I didn't like.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was probably by the same guy who directed this episode. I'm going to guess the Spider episode?
No, not at all. Oh. I didn't have a problem with the Spider episode.
Okay.
I hated the Carl Weathers episode because Carl Weathers was utterly unbearable in that episode.
I had some
not like.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, I had some criticisms of that episode. He was a little too let's pick on the blue guy.
Yeah. And I feel like even the whole he was overexcited for the kid, like just all of his lines and all of his acting in the episode he directed. Mm-hmm. I didn't like. Okay. I didn't enjoy anything about Carl Weathers in that episode, and I've loved him in all the other episodes. So for me, that one was just a major negative. And I was like, "How'd you screw up the episode you directed? Maybe he needed a filter. He needed somebody to reel him in on his own character,
because he might have been so focused on everyone else. That's a possibility. That was one of the things I talked about in that episode when we did that one. Was that there was this one scene where they were breaking in, and I don't want to get too far off track, because I know we're here to talk about Chapter 16. But while we're waiting,
you get off track from the planned direction of an episode.
No, it couldn't be. You know, it couldn't be. Couldn't turn this into like the sequel trilogy, where we're just kind of making it up as we go along.
Oh, hang on, let me cut a hole in the wall over here.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about generic Star Wars.
Ew.
We're talking about a certain role-playing game. Look, that was Zoltan. I can't be held responsible.
Oh, right. You were just playing your character.
That was just playing a chaotic character that was, as far as you knew, was a Jedi and was like totally like serious and stuff. But no, he was crazy. It was a little crazy. It's really hard to know whether your GM really wants chaos or not until you become a GM yourself. And then I was like, oh, chaos is really annoying. I mean, a little bit can be okay, but like, what do you do? No, don't go that way. I don't have any plan for what's that way. Don't go that. Okay. There's a dragon that way. Do you you want to keep going? That way? Okay. Go that way? You want to fight the dragon? All right. Well, hey, I hope he's got a great dragon pearl at the end. All right.
I've genuinely done that.
Yep.
I genuinely had to DM that session.
I recently concluded a campaign I was working on, but there was a lot of things that I wasn't anticipating. So it definitely gave me a new appreciation for what it's like to try to keep a campaign running. And it's honestly, I love it. It's enjoyable and also stressful. It's like being on a roller coaster with like only half a seatbelt,
Yep.
But all right. So back to this episode. I really loved this whole season. I had a lot of good episodes. I wasn't super crazy about the spider episode, but it wasn't even like a negative to me. It was just like, this one wasn't amazing. It was just kind of like, okay, it was kind of mediocre, but I think, we hit this stride where it was just amazing episode after amazing episode after amazing episode. And I think last week's was my favorite. This one is probably not my favorite episode, but it's obviously not without its extreme high points. But from a narrative or storytelling aspect, I think chapter 15 was probably my favorite. But this one is a great episode. We're going to talk about this one. So here we go. I gave enough spoiler warnings. We're going to jump right in to chapter 16, and it kind of opens up with a chase, and we see Dr. Pershing in the cockpit of a Lambda. We've got 2 Imperial pilots, and Boba Fett's Slave One is chasing them down, and it's finally this is kind of. We basically have one question answered, is how are they going to get on board this ship? We knew that he was going to board the ship. We knew that he was going to try and mount a rescue after that amazing finale for last week's episode. And this is kind of the way they've talked about, they've name dropped Dr. Pershing in a number of episodes, and that that they needed to get him back to do more. Surprisingly enough, we don't really have answers. I think this episode gave us a lot more questions than answers. Or at least left us with a lot of questions, because like, what exactly were they doing? Like, we know they're doing some kind of cloning stuff, but it makes me wonder if we're left with some type of like Snoke tie-in or some kind of something else, like a Luke Skywalker, aka Heir to the Empire.
For me, I think the direction was really it's either a Snoke or a Palpatine. They're working on bringing back, and some of the dialogue that we got from Gideon in relation to that, and even just kind of the hinting and the subtleties. For me, why do you need a high M count?
Yeah.
If you're going to try and do that, if you're going to try and work on resurrection, especially going back to episode 3, and I mean movies, with Palpatine talking about cheating death and all that fun stuff, to me that's my implied anyway. But it's cool that they don't tell us, because then we're just left here wondering.
Sometimes being left with really good questions is better than being given mediocre answers, Because a lot of times I think the fandom comes up with better paths forward than the writers do. At least as far as the sequel trilogy was concerned, I saw some amazing fan theories that were out of this world, and they just never came to be. And so, but I could do a whole, I could really go off on a tangent if we keep talking about the sequel trilogies. But we get some pretty cool things in this opening scene. Also, Boba uses the ion cannon.
Fun chase.
Yeah,
this kind of really fun chase.
Reminds me of like the X-wing players were probably really enjoying some of the direct callbacks to things that you can do in that game, whereas you can actually have the Slave One chasing a Lambda, and Lambdas are kind of dead in the water if you get right behind them. So it was very very much accurate, and
I had one minor critique with that though, and so back oh my gosh, this would have been third grade, so forever ago. I want to say I had actual blueprints of Slave One
Okay.
that a friend of mine like shared with me. I think he made a photocopy with me, and that was really special. Um, I don't think the ion cannons are mounted on the turret. I think, and if I'm not mistaken, they fired it from the turret. I believe the ion cannons are actually forward mounted and are just above the turrets.
That makes that so that syncs up to at least the way it works in X-wing, in that the primary weapon on here can swing forward or backwards, but
Right.
all of the cannon options that you can do are forward only.
Yeah,
How
and so I think they might have whatevered that one.
Yeah, there have been things. Look, as good as this show is, it's not perfect, right? It's not going to,
Right.
and sometimes it's just easier to just be like, okay, you know what? He channeled the ion cannon, through the main blaster because he didn't have that one in arc, and this was how he lined up the shot, or maybe he's made some special modifications.
Upgrades over the years, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You can explain it a number of different ways, but either way, it was nice to see the ion cannon get used exactly the way it was supposed to. And of course, we get this amazing shot of like the Slave One kind of going around and like coming up right in
Yeah.
front of him. I was like, oh, that's so intimidating. That's so scary. You see Boba standing right there. And it's kind of funny because we saw a lot of the interior and like last week's episode of the Slave One and how it kind of how it's got that gyroscopic kind of crew compartment, which is amazing. But it makes you think, boy, but at the same time, the way he's sitting in there, if it rolls back when he goes sideways, he's not going to be facing out. He's going to be facing the tail of the ship. So as much as his thing can move up and down, it's got to also spin around the x-axis as well. So it's probably fully gyroscopic.
Right.
But really cool. Love the scene. They kind of board, and we get an interesting kind of duality between these two pilots. The one is like totally like, look, I'm only here for the free college.
Right. Yeah.
I got
I worked with some people like that.
the Palpatine GI Bill. That's the only reason I'm here, right? And his other guy's like, no, shoots him straight in the back. He's like, no, you're not talking to them. And gives this epic smack talk speech to Cara Dune when she comes in, and I think they've done a really good job of making you really hate certain people. We saw it last week with that one Imperial officer, and again with this pilot, like they make you really hate this guy. And we got a super chat from Ethan Pierce, dude. Thank you, Ethan. Ethan has a question, and it says, do you like the overall portrayal of Boba these past few episodes? And what do you think we're getting with the Book of Boba Fett? So I'm gonna postpone the second part of your question because we are gonna talk about the Book of Boba Fett a little bit later. So I don't want to steal too much thunder there. But in short, I think that's what season 3 is going to be. But we'll see. But as far as the overall portrayal of Boba Fett, I was surprised. I'll say that. Brendon, I don't know if you have an opinion. I was expecting Boba to be more of an adversarial character. I was expecting for him to be the Yang to Din's Jin, to be like a bad Mandalorian, like a new enemy, right? I thought he was going to be that new enemy that eventually maybe Din would beat him and then he'd earn his respect and then they'd kind of go their separate ways and he might help him at some point. But I didn't expect him to start helping him so quickly and kind of, I don't want to call him a good guy, but certainly he's not a bad guy, and I thought he was going to be a bad guy.
I'm actually super okay with the portrayal, and I'm glad that we didn't end up with a suit v suit that happens in every Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Because realistically, it's a suit v suit situation at that point. That you've got this guy who's got awesome armor and crazy good skills. You got this guy who's got awesome armor and crazy good skills. How are they ever going to beat each other? Hit him with a vibranium mag rail, I guess, and deactivate it and then stab him quickly. Spoiler alert. But
yeah, I think they did. I think they did Boba pretty good. I mean, they did a good job, and this episode shows it a little bit more too, of establishing him as somebody who has honor, but also is still a badass, and I mean, very much a badass, but also has a little bit of some grit to him. Like he's not a super good guy. I mean, and as we will see,
right.
But he's also not. He's not pure evil. Like he is more or less concerned with his self, and his own sense of honor. I think he's driven by those two main things: honor and his own survival.
And I think, interestingly enough, Ming-Na Wen's character, I don't actually know what her real name is, I just know the actress. She's kind of in the same boat. Yeah, exactly. I've loved her in pretty much everything she's been in, so I was super glad to have more of her this season, because I loved that she was in that episode, and to have more of her, I was just like, yes.
Yeah, Ming-Na Wen is amazing. She was really good in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I didn't know this, but somebody told me she played Chun-Li in the Street Fighter movie. So
Really?
I don't know that person was accurate, but I haven't bothered to look it up yet. So here I am reiterating things that I don't even know if they're true or not. So I shouldn't.
You got me curious on that. I knew her from Stargate Universe.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
She played a politician and a real a-hole on that show, and it was really good.
She's got like a sass and a roughness to her that she can really pull that off. So this is actually a good spot for her. This is like a yolk finding its way to the center of the egg. You know, it's just a good role for her. So moving forward, this dude just delivers all this trash about Alderaan being killed and whatever, and dude, like Cara Dune's just like, this is your last warning, put him down, and she just shoots him right in the head. Like I thought she was going to shoot.
Dislike this one at the same time.
Yeah,
like it felt forced, just like the last episode was a little forced as well. Honestly, that exposition, I felt like it was over exposition, over evil. And in both cases, the guys got exactly what we expected them to get at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Matthew Kelsey says the best adversaries are ones in which you can understand their motivation, even if you don't agree with them, like Thanos, Vulture, and Killmonger. I think that's a good point, and that's one of the things I think that kind of.
I'll agree with all three of those. Those are all fantastic in the MCU.
Yeah, I'll add one more. I'll say Spider-Man 2's Dr. Octopus, who was maybe one of my favorite villains of all time. Spider-Man 2, great film in a time where Marvel movies were not great. And that one managed to be great, and which was quite an achievement. So they kidnap. So they have Dr. Pershing now, and they
shot just gave me chills.
I'm
just freezing on your picture right here for a sec. That just gave me chills.
Wait, the picture there, or my beautiful face?
Oh, yours, of course.
Of course.
And the ship.
Yeah. No, I loved this. It's a great callback to Star Wars Rebels, or honestly, like, look, the Gauntlet Fighter is beautiful. I think that Rebels made it famous, but
now was it in? It wasn't in. No, none of that was in Clone Wars. That was purely.
Yeah, I think it was straight from Rebels. I don't know if the Fang fighters were in Clone Wars at all. They might have been in season 7 because you had the whole Siege of Mandalore. But the Gauntlet, I don't. No, it might have been. I'll go back and watch. I've only watched season 7 once. Yes, it is Biggs. Thanks, Biggs. I thought that was you, especially evidenced by the avatar. But big shout out to Biggs hanging out with us in the chat. But yeah, so great scene here. We get the Gauntlet Fighter kind of landed. There's actually a couple of other craft there. Some of them look familiar, although I'll be honest, I didn't try to Wikipedia every single ship that was on the ground here.
On the left there, is that one of them little snub fighters that Scum have an X-Wing?
I think it is, or it's very similar, like a Havoc or something like that. I think it might be, but then again, I think they just reused. Like, at some point, they're probably reusing some of the art they had from, Episode 9, because you had just about every freighter-sized craft and anything around that category, readily available in the computers, preloaded from Episode 9. So I think at least that, and then some of the stuff that's flying in the background was probably some of those ships. But yeah, whoa, we got a super chat from Masters of the Force, a.k.a. MOTF, or Masters of the Fleet, if you knew them from Armada content. And MOTF Ken says, just wanted to say thank you for all your support with our channel, but also with the community in general. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, mate. Mando chat, question here. Who or what do you think is occupying Mandalore?
That's a heavy question.
That's a really good question. I'll be honest with you. I have not thought about it.
I was under the impression it was a toxic wasteland, but I might be wrong there.
Well, you would be wise to be under that impression because that's just what the Imperial propaganda wants you to think. They don't want anybody going to that place, right? That's a good question because in this coming scene where actually they talk about Mandalore a little bit, and that's obviously it's been foreshadowed. I guess foreshadowing is maybe not the right word, but it's definitely something that's been talked about in all the episodes with Bo-Katan. You know, and we're told that Din doesn't believe there's any hope for that place. Of course. Boba doesn't think there's any hope for that place, probably evidenced why he doesn't, stay with our heroes after this episode is over. But I think there's definitely more to Mandalore than we know. I don't think they're going to throw away Mandalore. I think they've deliberately left it kind of in the shadows for right now. We haven't written that yet, kind of.
Right.
I would not be surprised if. To see that Thrawn might have had something to do with Mandalore. Maybe Thrawn has a base there. I mean, we're in a period of time where a lot of stuff can slide. Like they can let a lot of things go in because there's enough time before and after that is unwritten to allow for things to happen. But it could also be some type of secret Imperial project. I mean, the purge of Mandalore, like the last we've really seen of Mandalore, I think was Clone Wars Season 7. And so like what they had retaken Mandalore, but it seems like the Mandalorians did not, stand up because we go forward to Rebels, which is during the Concord Dawn kind of arc and stuff, and they've all been driven off of Mandalore and they're separated into factions. So the Empire obviously said, look, these guys are a threat to us. And knowing everything we know about Star Wars, for the Empire to view your culture as a threat to their empire, it says a lot about the Mandalorians and what they could have been and their potential. So I think Mandalore is not as much of a toxic wasteland as you might think.
Historically, we know what Mandalorians are capable of too. Jumping back a few thousand years,
the Jedi Wars, right? Or KOTOR, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So, which isn't canon anymore, but whatever.
It's kind of in that place where it's not canon, it's certainly not exactly not canon, right? I mean, yeah.
And we've seen this episode and really pretty much everything Filoni's been touching lately. We've seen that he has no issues with grabbing from and sampling.
Yes.
Some of the best things, and fortunately, I think for everybody, maybe omitting some other things.
There were some things.
Finding.
Absolutely. As much as a lot of us loved Legends, like if you look at the Thrawn trilogy, right? Like there's so many great things out of the original Heir to Empire trilogy, but do we really need Jorah Sabaoth, or could we maybe do something better in that department, right? So like, and when they do reapproach Thrawn, I think that's something that we'll probably see happen. A bunch of like grown-ups are like, okay, this was really fun when we were kids, but how can we, now that we have license to improve on it with impunity, how could we improve on it? And while still keeping the good things. Like I think we're going to see Mara Jade again. I think we'll see Talon Card. A lot of that stuff. We already know that Jalad Paleon exists in his canon because he was in Thrawn's fleet. So there's I wouldn't be surprised if we see Garm Bel Iblis again. So a lot of things that they can do. As for Mandalore, I think that may be connected, but I think we'll see more about Mandalore in the future of this show or related shows. I think Disney's kind of found their home run stride with this show, more so than the sequel trilogy, at least as far as appealing to the veteran fans and the fans that have the most money to spend. And MOTF also goes on to say that, because Bo-Katan is amassing ships to reclaim Mandalore, but reclaim from who? If it's the Imperials, then why hasn't the New Republic come in? Great story points to explore. That's a really good point, because Mandalore isn't... They're in the mid-rim, right? If I'm correct. I mean, at least from my games of Star Wars Rebellion, they're not that far out.
Well, yeah, without Googling it, I couldn't tell you. But it's... Yeah, and then at the same time, it's a place people avoid, and they don't go, and they don't participate. So
there's something going on there, and I think it's like a haunted house, almost like Dathomir. Like if you were in the Star Wars galaxy, would you really want to go to Dathomir? Like I probably wouldn't want to. It would feel like a graveyard, and I think
it's a nice gift shop. I hear.
I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that that we're likely to see there is some real interesting questions, and I'm really curious to like reclaim it from whom, and that's
Right.
that's a huge question. And a good part of it is that the New Republic was under-equipped to take over a whole galaxy. Going from rebellion to now the government. They're like, oh crap, how do we do this? And that's going to be probably a big reason why Mandalore is not secured, because they just have their hands full, and a graveyard of a planet, quote unquote, whether or not that's true, is probably pretty low on their priorities right now.
Yeah, I think at best you've got a situation where it might be overrun by some sort of crime lord or something like that.
Yeah.
Who's running maybe some salvaging and smuggling operations from there.
There's got to be artifacts. There's got to be lots of Mandalorian history that are there. A lot of Beskar probably beneath the surface.
Yeah. But it's got to be significant enough that Bo-Katan and the others haven't already gone back. Even if it's some sort of crime lord, there's a reason that they're still staying away and they haven't just gone for it.
Perhaps some type
aside from not having the Darksaber.
I'm guessing some kind of major planetary shielding is probably a good thing, enough to just to look, you have to come really big, and is it worth bringing an entire fleet when you don't even know what's here? And Bo-Katan obviously isn't going to convince them. So a lot of great questions, and a lot of that is alluded to in this. Moving forward with the episode, Mando
Speaking
and
of
Boba.
actresses, I was glad to see again.
Oh, you're telling me? I mean,
and I'm not talking about Kate Sackhoff. Nope. I'm talking about Mercedes, Sasha Banks.
Yes,
I'm a WWE fan.
She's awesome, and it's interesting that we didn't get the other guy, Axe, I think his name was, that was in the. Maybe he's on the ship.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or granted, she's got a whole. Well, look, in addition to this gauntlet, they've also got a Gazanti right now. I imagine he's probably, doing maintenance on the Gazanti, maybe repainting it or something like that, or whatever. So
yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Or the logistics of it, as we can only support so many actors for this particular episode.
Right.
Yeah. But she's got a bigger operation, and she's obviously got more than 2 Mandalorians.
Right.
But I love the exchange between Boba and both of them. And what was Sasha Banks's her Mando name? It's Saska.
Was it
Casca Frost? Yeah. But
I didn't even look that up, to be honest. I just nerded out hardcore that her hair wasn't like blue or purple or pink or whatever, And that's what took me the longest. I was like, I know her face. Yeah. Why is this bothering me?
Yes.
But I've been following her since she was like debuting on WWE,
right?
And so I've known her for years now.
So it's definitely a bigger deal, a bigger fanboy kind of geek out moment for you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about Starbuck too, but like for me it was just because she's not an actress, right? She's a professional wrestler.
It does take cool acting chops to pull off wrestling, to pull off sports entertainment as well.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other episode. But she's fully capable, and she gives Boba Fett a DDT, a spinning DDT with a jetpack.
It was amazing.
And I'm all about that.
Yeah, they stand up. There's so much posturing in this scene, and I loved all of it.
It was great.
It was great, and you see different aspects of. Like, Bo-Katan doesn't like him. I love that she addressed his whole, you're no Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And she starts, and he kind of started it, but he's like, we don't need them, and he doesn't want to be around them because he knows what they think, too. I think he's got self-esteem issues. And I think I
like that one, and I like that her approach to Boba was different than her approach to Din, because she almost felt pity for Din.
Yeah. Well, he also helped her out, too, so she kind of owes him. Right. And she also recognizes that Din is a man of honor, even though he's a foundling and he's part of one of these cults. She wants to bring everybody together. But I think she's imperfect. I think Bo-Katan is a brilliant, flawed character. She's mostly good, but she's not lawful good, right? She's she's probably neutral good, or or maybe even a little chaotic good, because she's just I can't resist.
I'd say lawful neutral, really. She'll do what it takes to get it done. She has a code of honor, though, that she's not going to break.
That's a good point. And she's learned, apparently. And I'm really curious what happened between Rebels and The Mandalorian to her, how she lost the Darksaber, because we're going to talk about this some more, because there's some really, really interesting stuff that gets dropped here. but yeah, oh no, this whole thing is really cool. Imagine
Ethan in chat rooting for Boba, but
dude,
I love that they were an equal fight. It needed to be an immovable object versus an immovable object.
I loved it too because it talks about that the power of the Mandalorians, and we get it right there. They kind of end in this perfect standoff, and everybody and
I don't know that the physics on that actually work, but it looked cool.
Yeah, to be fair, in a galaxy far, far away, light can just stop after 1 meter, right? And then so apparently, flames can stop flames. They're Mandalorian flames, so we really don't know what Mandalorian flames are made of. We know that they look really cool, especially inside the chassis of a Death Trooper, which we'll talk about later, because we get a kind of a Ghost Rider. Oh, okay, all right. See, I want to be all over the place with this episode, but my cursed PowerPoints... If
you didn't have these slides, you would be.
It would be all over the place. I would be cutting holes in walls in our discussion right now.
Oh, here, let's go over here right now.
No. Yeah, so these are the things that kind of help keep me on track. This is part of the lessons learned from years of content creation and literally having no idea what I've been doing. So they eventually kind of settle down. Bo is like, look, if we showed the Empire half of that spine, we wouldn't have lost our planet. And I think that's a good leadership moment from her. And at the same time, that's kind of giving you a pretty good indication of what happened. They weren't united. And the Empire came in and got some of them to join up with them. And some got scared and ran away. And then many others probably stood and fought and died where they stood. And I think that's probably the big three, conclusions if you were on Mandalore when the Empire decided enough is enough.
Yep.
So so they get all these schematics, and we've kind of got the whole gang together right now. And for whatever reason, and this is maybe if I had one complaint about this episode or a question about this episode, it was like, why does Dr. Pershing suddenly just decide to oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you everything about how to defeat the Empire right now. I'm like...
My wife did that too, but I didn't really feel that way. He, even from episode 1, wasn't on board with a lot of the... He's a scientist, and he's curious, and he's into, studying, and he's clearly exceptional at what he does, but he didn't want the child killed. He did what he could to prevent draining the child in episode 2, and even kind of gave, I don't remember what the specifics are of it, but he gave details to the Mando during episode 2. Even
he's not evil. I think he's misguided. And again, this is just nitpicking because I'm not gonna look I didn't even like the sequels that much, but I'm not gonna trash them because I was thrilled to go see Star Wars in the movie theater, right? And so I want to be the eternal optimist, but now once we get past that optimism, it's great to nitpick, and that is it's a minor nitpick here because you just minutes before you had Dr. Pershing in the Lambda, well, shouldn't we fight back? Oh, shouldn't we attack them? And now all of a sudden you're granted he didn't know who it was or whatever. Maybe he recognizes Mando. It's oh, you're the guy who cares about this kid. Okay, well, whatever. I think at the end of the day, it's just plot convenience. It's nice that he had more information there, and it's easier to go.
It pushed the story forward.
Yeah, that's it. You don't want a 2-hour episode, although. Probably wouldn't.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Somebody at corporate is we don't want a 2-hour episode. So, yeah. Well, Pershing is the brother of Bodhi in Rogue One. Really? No. Oh, that's you're saying that's a joke. I'm to say I don't know if he might be in real life. They might be brothers, but Bodhi Rook from Rogue One. I'm not sure.
Comparison to Galen Erso's not a bad one, though.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the Imperial scientists were forced to work for the Empire. And and here's a guy who's he's been forced to work for them, and he's just accepted it as his way of life. And now that he's been captured, or maybe in his mind freed, he's well,
he's got an opportunity.
Yeah, well, maybe I can start a new future doing science for the New Republic. And they did also explain that he was very valuable to the New Republic. So maybe he feels like he's got a better future where he won't be forced to work at gunpoint anymore.
Right.
So they have their whole plan. They're going to come in. Boba's going to shoot him, and this is a little more.
Cool scene.
a little more smack talk. And as an Armada player and as a lover of the Architon's light cruiser, I was happy to see this. I did initially expect this to happen a little differently, though. I thought we were going to see a New Republic fleet kind of join up and help out. And I think because they certainly played up the New Republic's role earlier in this season. And
they teased it really hard.
Yeah, they really did. And it worked out in different ways in that they were able to get his location. You know, in last week's episode was really the New Republic angle. But still, this episode, I didn't know that the ties launched out of the front tube like that. And I thought that was a really cool Battlestar Galactica kind of Easter egg almost about like launch Vipers, you know, through the little tubes, you know. Oh, I think
I played the heck out of X-Wing back in the day, and I loved the way the Forks brought them in. We saw a little bit of that in episode 7 when Finn and Poe are making their escape, but we really got to see it here with the Forks. I really like that because that was a big part of launching in X-Wing in 1995 on my Windows 95 machine.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So like dropping out of a Star Destroyer that way, it still kind of had to like set them in place, but it wasn't nearly as cool as what we saw on screen here with the just going from 0 to 120.
Oh yeah, no, very, very cool. Dylan's little hobbies mentioned. I love the princess line from Boba, since she's technically a Mandalorian princess, where Boba calls her princess. Does that mean Bo-Katan is the next Disney princess?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me.
Technically, yeah.
I'm good with that.
But I love the way that they just land in here and they stop all the other ties from launching, which is very
I
effective.
actually had a major beef with this on Gideon's perspective. Like, if he's already been threatened by the Mando, then I would not let anything in or out of my ship until that was resolved.
Well, he didn't want to let them in, and I think that was it. I think I had a beef with this too, and I thought, isn't he going to like? To be fair, he was mostly ready. I like as soon as they're coming in, the distress calls. He's like launch ties right away. Like I think he was expecting something, and and at the same time, like he had powered up the Dark Troopers much faster than they anticipated. So he was definitely ready to an extent, to the extent that the plot permitted. Because you know, if he didn't let anybody on, then he wouldn't have had an episode if he didn't let them on at all. But,
I know, but in my bad guy brain, I'm just like, look, I got somebody threatening my home and saying he's going to come, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm going to shoot at anything that moves in the perimeter.
No, that's true. I think they rolled a triumph because they had a boost die that because Gideon was expecting a Lambda with Dr. Pershing on it. And so, and he even, like, to be fair, this is the Lambda he sent to pick up Dr. Pershing. So his guard was down to let this Lambda like approach. And then, but he didn't, but still they were denied. Technically his comm officer said, no, request denied, you know, like do not come on board. And they forced their way in. So like
at that point, man, I'd be firing up turbo lasers.
Well, Boba got the heck out of Dodge like before anything. So,
no, I mean to shoot the Lambda. I'd blast the Lambda. Like
that's fair.
Nope, you're not coming on.
they did certainly come in very, very fast and hot. And I think from that angle too. I think most of the turbo lasers are actually on the top deck. So coming in straight, you're out of their range of fire. They might not be able
to go low enough.
Yeah, they can't draw a line of sight to you at that point. So much about this, even from a geek nerd over analytical standpoint, is brilliant. It's just brilliant the way they did it. So I love this.
Yeah, it ended up working out at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I'm just like, cool. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, no, very, very cool. I want to see more Architons too. I want to see I hope this ends up being a slightly different Architons than the ones we've already got in Armada, because I want like this version to show up in Armada now. But
there we go.
We'll see.
Separate sculpt or just a different card?
Well, there's more greebling on this one than we've seen before. Granted, because most of it could be the difference between like Clone Wars style animation and live action, or you could say that it's like an Architon's Mark II or something like that.
We saw that on the Mando blasters, which we might see in one of your frames here in a sec. The pistols are very, very plain in the show.
Yeah.
But they had just a little bit more here, but it was exactly the same style as what Sabine and all the clones have as well for pistols.
And to the same extent, the Gozanti cruiser that we saw in like episode 4 or something like that, or 3, was similarly had like way more detail than we've ever seen before. And I think a lot of that is, hey, we got the budget, we got the Disney Plus budget. Let's make it look really good for live action. And I loved that. I loved that. All right, so so they storm the docking bay, and first thing Moff Gideon does is say, fire up the Dark Troopers. Actually, this is the second thing he does. First thing he does is pulls out his MP3 player, plugs it into the Arquitton system, and starts playing that techno. I'm surprised like his little comm officer didn't pull out some like chem lights and start tweaking out, because like the music was like unlike anything, and like Mandalorian has already done crazy things with music. But when like the Dark Troopers are on screen, it's like the most funkadelic tech. Like I
don't even think I noticed that. I was so caught up in the moment. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again.
It's so
I don't
cool.
even think I caught that,
dude. For all of these episodes, like I watch them once first, like to try to get past the spoilers. Then like after work, when I'm all home for the day, I watch it with the family. And get the kids' reaction, and then I go back and watch it a third time to grab all the screen stuff and make my slideshow. So by the third viewing, I usually pick up on things that sometimes I missed, and man, the freaking music was funny. I saw somebody making a joke about it today, but no, it's really good stuff. Like I love it. We haven't really seen like a bard kind of character in Star Wars yet. Like we've seen, like Sabine's like an artist, but like for paint, like a physical artist. Like we just haven't seen like musicians by and large. I mean, outside of like the original trilogy.
Max Rebo.
Yeah, and then like Figure and Dan and the modal nodes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not like a modern kind of, not somebody that would obviously have done this kind of, stuff, which is just hilarious. But no, the Death Troopers had a great power up sequence, and this is kind of this kind of stretches out over like the next 10 minutes of the episode of them like slowly powering up and kind of getting into formation. It's
which built so much tension that whole time, because it's coming.
Exactly. Like it's just the tension from this point just continues to build. And we get a good 10 minutes of just fight scenes of them taking the cargo bay, taking the hallways, moving towards the bridge. A lot of it's just good old fashioned, corridor blaster action fight scene, just nonstop. I love that Cara Dune's blaster jams though, or that her rifle, and I think it's it's like one of those. It's got one red and three white. The kind that I'm talking about from Legion.
Yeah, it sits on top of the pintle on the gas tank if you want it to.
Exactly. It's a great.
So it's money.
It's a great weapon, and she uses it as a baseball bat, which she can't get it to fire, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I had a moment here where I pointed out to my wife that the internet being the internet was having issues, that there weren't enough powerful females in Mandalorian or whatever. And even in season 1, I thought that was garbage, because look at who's in charge of the Mandalorians on the planet there, right? Yeah. Like room full of alpha males who are about ready to rip each other apart, and she speaks a couple of words softly and they all stop. Right? That's power. That's control. Cara Dune was the same way in season 1. And then here in season 2, you've got a squad of 4 super elite troopers, all female, every last one of them. And I was just like, that argument's out the window. You can complain about something else.
Star Wars has gone a long way towards inclusion and trying to make more people feel seen and recognized. And I think they've done it in a great way. So it wasn't not in a way that made me feel like it was
me
forced.
As a fan. Yeah, it didn't feel forced. It was just like, these are 4 awesome characters. Yeah. And I'm interested in all of them.
Exactly.
I want to know who Sasha Banks's character is more. Like, I wouldn't mind a one-off episode where we explore how she joined Bo-Katan.
Yeah, I like a lot of this, and I think we're going to get to see more of Fennec Shand, because apparently she's going to be in the Bad Batch. So we're getting, these are all branching off points, and so it kind of makes me look back to. To the way Star Wars used to be, and like, wow, we have a lot more inclusion now. Like, and I didn't even think about this until recently, but there's actually very few white males in The Mandalorian. You've got Bill Burr, and then you had the sheriff in episode 1, Timothy Oliphant. But by and large, there weren't that many, and I didn't even notice, like, because it's just, first off, it's Star Wars, so you expect to see a lot of aliens and a lot of diversity.
Imperials. Imperials are maybe the exception.
Yes, and that's kind of how they normally.
That's an Imperial thing. Imperials are generally British,
and they're generally human. Yeah, although Moff Gideon was actually a notable exception to that. But
which I thought was great too. Like whatever.
Yeah. But I loved how none of it felt forced, and it's like look, all these characters, the acting was great on pretty much everybody. And so I'd actually say Cara Dune was probably maybe, I don't want to say weakest, but maybe overshadowed by the performances that everybody else gave, like that, were even better. So I probably rank her at the bottom as far as impact for me this
season. Maybe because you've already seen more of her too. Like we haven't seen Ming Na Wen as much. We haven't seen Mercedes as much.
But I'm a big fan of Katie Sackhoff too.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, what can I say? I mean, it's not hard to be if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan as well.
Right. Yeah.
But Cara Dune did good in this episode. This was a stronger episode for her. Some of the other episodes she was in, I feel like she wasn't doing much, so she did a lot more this time around, which I liked. And then so we get to Mando while they're taking the bridge. Mando gets to this cargo bay right as the Death Troopers power up, and he's like, no, and it's just monster movie.
Was so stressed out during that scene. She was like literally talking to the TV during that scene.
Exactly. Dominic says the RT-97 Charlie rifle. That's I knew there was a Charlie in there.
I knew I recognized it, and my wife actually also at that point pointed out that I didn't need to narrate what everything in the episode was from.
Yep.
She let me know that I didn't need to tell her.
And it's funny because my wife will say, like, you always watch it before you watch it with us. It'd be nice if you just I'm like, the problem is if I sit down and I watch it with you guys for the first time, I'm going to be talking about everything. Ooh, I'm going to be like that meme of Leo, like pointing at the screen. Like, you don't want to see me. You want to see me relaxed after I've already processed everything. And I can just be like, that dad is like, you like that? That was pretty good, huh?
That was my episode 1 when I got to watch it with all my 501st buddies in Omaha because I had dropped in on them, and there was literally a room full of guys doing that.
Yep. There's so and that's what I love about this show, and that it's doing so much of that. It's like ooh, like the first time we saw the Dark Troopers, you're like, what was that? I gotta Google. What is everybody else saying? And it makes you want to talk to people, and it makes like shows like this after show, and like on all the chat rooms and all the Discords and all of that stuff. It's just it's bringing people together in a time where I think we need to be brought together, and it's great. It's great, and it's a shame to me that the sequel trilogies weren't able to pull that off. And I don't want to trash them too much. I have my opinions on them, but overall, I still think they were. I'd rather have Star Wars than not Star Wars, but more so than that, I'd rather have this kind of Star Wars, right? So
absolutely,
yeah. But yeah, so we get the classic monster movie, and he's almost like this is straight like Terminator 2, right? Like the door's almost closed. Yeah. Oh, this one guy gets through. Oh, this is so great. What a great scene.
I was a little confused, and it did what it needed to do because of all the foreshadowing and all the everything that comes after this.
Yes.
I was a little surprised they didn't have more that kind of got their fingers in there too to assist. I was kind of waiting for some sort of swarm tactics from them to rip that door open.
That would have been that's the upgrade. That's the V4 Dark Troopers. In this
they'll have programming for that.
Yeah, exactly. Lessons learned, always improving. But yeah, this served an excellent purpose to kind of we've seen they've shown you that the Dark Troopers are big and scary and powerful and nasty and all this stuff, but you've just been kind of told that they're big and bad and scary. Now you see why. And
this was. We had 10 weeks of promo packages, and this is their debut in ring.
Yes.
Now they're coming down, and now we actually get to see them. And this isn't a squash match. This is against the champion. And this is actually mastercraft in storytelling right here because you've got a whole platoon, and this is one of the few times that Star Wars uses their echelon
terminology correctly, because yes, that's about a platoon. So many times they throw words around. It's like, we have an entire division. You've got 4 people. That's not a division. You
Squad.
Yeah, right. And sure enough, I think they actually had 4 squads, like a full platoon, and they were spaced out evenly across the ship. You can do the counting and everything. It's like, yeah, good for you. You got that
right. Yep.
Yeah. But you're able to see how difficult they are when it's just one-on-one. And I think this kind of answers, I think we get the question answered today, but at this point in the episode, I'm like, oh, is there armor Beskar? Because, granted, Beskar is not the only thing that is resistant to blasters. It could be a high-quality Durasteel, or it could be a Beskar alloy.
I was going to go with Cortosis, but it's not Cortosis based on what we see later.
It's likely not Cortosis. There's always the chance. Yeah, definitely not. I think it's definitely not Cortosis. I think also we kind of expect Cortosis to have more of almost like a hex pattern, like there's a Cortosis weave running through it or something like that.
Yeah, I've understood it's more fabric-y generally.
Yeah. Like a Kevlar almost. I would love to see Cortosis look a little bit more like Kevlar. To have that weave. So you guys who are not familiar with Cortosis, this was made popular, I think, during the Clone Wars, and it was a material that, while being resistant to lightsabers, could also cause the blades to turn off if it was close enough to them. So
I know them mostly from Old Republic stuff, dominantly used by Sith in crafting. Jedi didn't usually wear them.
Okay. So Tim says he thinks it's 50-50 Beskar Durasteel. That could be look, we've talked about this before. Apparently Moff Gideon has Beskar. He's definitely an enemy to the Mandalorians. He very well may also have troops on Mandalore. Maybe that's how he got the Darksaber. Maybe that's how he got the stuff that he paid for the child. Maybe there's some cloning stuff going on in Mandalore right now. Maybe he's trying to clone Mandalorian infused with the Force, which might lead maybe it's totally separate from Snoke, right? Maybe that whole container that looked Snoke-esque was just a total curveball to make you think in a different direction, but either way, whatever he's got planned, I'm sure we'll find out more eventually. But this dude, he was resistant to blasters. He couldn't do much to him, and he just I was reminded of like Hulkbuster, just going poof, poof, poof.
Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful. And
I love, you were just, I know I was asking myself, is it going to crack? Is it going to crack? Mm-hmm. Is it going to crack? Because, Boba's helmet has the dent in it.
Yes.
And so what is this? What's going to happen here?
Yeah. And even if it didn't crack, I mean, I'm sure he did not feel good after. I'm sure he had a headache after this, because there's some of that force is going to go through, and he was hitting him hard. And we know how hard they can hit because they're punching the doors and putting welts in Durasteel with these punches. So, and he's just manhandling him. Din gets the flamethrower, kind of tries to ignite this guy. It doesn't stop him, but apparently, I think it caused a few points of damage because it caused him to kind of throw him away. He's like, hey, this is damaging some of my circuits, or it's going to melt some of this wiring. Stop that, But I was getting Ghost Rider vibes from this. Like this is a beautiful image right here.
Yeah. That was a great camera shot, and realistically, it could be getting underneath. It could be overheating. Maybe it needed to cool down. They did mention it had to cool, right?
Yeah,
like they had to keep them in
cold storage for the power.
Maybe it's overheating like a battle mech or something.
Yeah, that could be. Or if they were still very cold too, like just sometimes that intense change can cause some things to, at certain temperatures too, like computers, like at a certain, like computers have to be kept in cold temperatures, and cooled, because at a certain, I think at like 120 degrees, 2 + 2 can equal 5, like they can really skew the core computing. So either way, just a great scene though. He annoyed him. He finally harmed the thing a little bit, but this thing was still wiping the floor with him, and he finally gets his spear, and he's like, oh, that's right, I got this thing. And he's able to get right through it, and
that was a great kill shot.
Oh, it was great, and I loved it. So, but this was a tough fight, and this was a long fight, and a good CGI fight, like really showcasing how dangerous these Dark Troopers are, and
they definitely gave it the time it needed.
I think so. To me, it felt perfect. It didn't feel rushed, and it didn't feel too long. It did not drag on at all. It was, and it
wasn't Obi-Wan versus Anakin for 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, no. And then of course he gets to the pulls the hatch and launches these guys out into space. And I was immediately thinking, dude, they can fly. What's that gonna do? You know.
My wife was actually like, why would you have that button? And to me, my immediate response was, I'm an evil mastermind. I'm going to make something that I have full autonomous control on. But what if it doesn't work right? What if it gets turned against me? I need a flush button.
Yes. It's
a flush button.
Well, I think there's two reasons for a switch like that. The first and most important is what you said, right? Like you need a contingency in case your kill weapon either gets turned against you or acts on its own.
Right.
But I think you also you need protection against somebody trying to tamper with your ultimate weapon, because don't forget, now they were locked up in their chassis like in a roller coaster, and they got released from that. So if somebody's in there trying to hijack one or to steal one, you can vent them out into space and protect your investment, from that. But there's realistically, I think if you get into like heavy logistics, there's probably airlocks almost everywhere. I bet you every room potentially has an airlock in case for all kinds of reasons. Like if you needed to get in from the outside. Yeah.
Fire suppression. I've played Faster Than Light a whole bunch.
Exactly.
It's real nice having a door on the room to the thing you need to vent.
Yep. Heck, I love that. And I don't know if you've ever played the game Nemesis, the board game.
No, it's on my to-do list.
You will love it. But that's one of the things you can do is you can vent rooms out into space, and it puts out fires. It also sends people out into space with it too, which is a especially fun thing to do. But yes, but so I was thinking, well, maybe the ship is in motion, and maybe they won't be able to catch up, or what. So I guess we'll see what happens. Of course, we know what happens, but it buys them some time, and that's all they really needed. They were buying time here, and so Mando finally gets to the room where they're holding the child, and finds Gideon there holding a darksaber above him, and then you get a lot of this. You kind of get the bad guy speech, right? He starts monologuing, and this was good.
It still worked out, and he delivered it well. I think that's part of it. Like, just as much on the actor as the writing here.
Definitely, he's doing a power play with like I know everything. I know that your wrist launcher has fired its one and only salvo, and I'm like, oh man, you're so. Yeah. You are a bad
I even
dude.
remember when he fired that, I was like, he can't do that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he was desperate, and like everything makes sense, right? And I get it, and it did slow the Dark Trooper down too, so it wasn't a total waste. It bought him enough time to get to his spear, so it was not a waste. But Toasty Crabbok, have you done that before? I think you were talking about launching somebody out into space in Nemesis. Yes, I have, and it's definitely worth doing, because then you get to talk about it afterwards and during live streams. But yeah, so they kind of have this back and forth about like, look, I just wanted his blood, and he talks a little bit about the big plan, but just like I just wanted to study his blood, and I've already got what I need. It's all done. I wasn't sure if he was lying here or telling you just enough of the truth, and I think.
Right.
I don't know.
Either way, it doesn't matter, because he got what he wanted out of the scene.
That is true, because he's like, look, Bo-Katan wants this, and he's like, I don't even care. You can keep it. I just want the kid. And I'm thinking to myself, you told Bo-Katan you were going to help her get the darksaber, but he also said my only priority is the child. So like he wasn't lying. He's just like
secondary objective. I can complete the mission without it.
Yeah. But if it costs me the darksaber to get the kid, no problem. So he stuck to his principles, but Gideon did not. And so as soon as he's like, all right, but you will leave immediately, and he's like, fine. And he takes the kid, and Gideon attacks him from behind. And I don't think Gideon knew that Beskar was going to stop the darksaber. My guess here is this is the first time he has swung this against an armored Mandalorian. That's my guess. I could be wrong. I could be.
But in the hypothetical of how did he get it in the first place, he has to have seen it.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Not necessarily. Because based on the discussion that we're going to talk about in a little bit about how one gains the Darksaber, he is not a Mandalorian,
right?
As far as we know, and thus he is not bound by their laws or rules. So he could easily steal it without caring, because he doesn't need its power, because he's not trying to use it to unite Mandalore, to reclaim Mandalore. He just wants it because he's an asshole, and he's like, dude, it's cool, and he loves it. He likes to fire it up all the time and show it to people. He wants it for the same reason that I keep buying Star Wars Black Series lightsabers, because dude, look what I got, because they're freaking cool.
That's on the shelf behind me there.
No, they're amazing. Oh, we got Puppy joining us. Who is this?
This is Valen, and he is almost 9.
Oh, Valen Rudor.
Yeah.
All right. But so we got a great fight scene between Mando and the Moff, and I like the way that the Beskar spear gets heated up for prolonged contact with the blade, and it's just really cool. It didn't break, and certainly everything they said about it was true. But it was a nice touch to see that impact, kind of showing that it means something.
Yeah, it needed to have some reaction, not just sparks.
Yeah, and it just made
see enough sparks and flashing with lightsaber clashes.
We do, and it was nice to see. It made this a very visually pleasing duel, I think. Biggs says he probably saw it used on a trooper or on trooper armor, probably not on a Mando and full Beskar. That is very likely. I wouldn't be surprised if Moff Gideon at some point used this on some of his own stormtroopers that failed him.
Oh, I'm sure.
He seems season 1, didn't he say that he killed other people? Like the biker scouts didn't want to call and report something. He just killed that other guy, So
and kind of back to your initial point on this one, he hits him square in the backpack and didn't go for the neck like he should have, right?
Right.
Like that was because we all know that the weakest point in a Mandalorian's armor is the neck seal.
Yeah, that's where we would go.
As proven in episode 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That they were definitely going right for the neck. That's what you have to do. Or maybe in between, in between the shoulder and the breastplate, trying or something like that. But yeah. So
this one here actually, I had a minor critique on this fight, and hit me if you think it's a little off. But
okay.
He's got the spear, right? So the spear is not a lightsaber. So in a lightsaber fight, you can't deactivate, reactivate, and go for it, because you're going to get a lightsaber to the face. In this case, worst thing happens, he's going to get a pole hitting him in the chest or something in the armor, and then he activates, reactivates, and now he can grab that spear by the side, activate, reactivate, go, because his weapon isn't heavy.
Oh, you're saying Gideon should have deactivated it to break the lock, and maybe he gets scraped a little bit, but that's an option.
Grab that spear off on, and now you got a Mando trophy.
I don't think Gideon is quite that experienced in martial fighting. He's obviously got some experience, but he's not a master of hand-to-hand combat, and Yeah, he needed some more specialization.
That was just my first thinking while I'm watching that. I'm like, man, that's a spear. It's not a sword, right? Because even a sword would cut you. It's not a lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's a spear. That's a metal pole. It's a walking stick.
And to be fair, Mando wasn't even that skilled with it either. If you go back to the Ahsoka episode when that magistrate was wielding it against Ahsoka, she knew how to wield that. Well, I mean, her father was a legendary martial artist from the Philippines, and I forget his name, but he was, I've had other people mention him he was a really big deal. I wasn't familiar with him, but he was a really big deal. So she was trained by a Bruce Lee-esque kind of guy. So she really was, the actress had her chops down for sure. Right. But Mando here is a little sloppier with it, but it's good enough because he is a warrior. Whereas Gideon is more of a bureaucrat with a slight proficiency in warrior, But he gets him down. He disarms him, and Gideon's like, "Oh, you're gonna let me live? This is gonna be interesting."
Right. Yeah. I was like, he's gonna snake in the grass. This is gonna go great.
Yeah. And certainly it does. It goes very interesting because then we get the scene of Mando kind of walking into the room with Gideon and in tow, and Mando's got the Darksaber activated now.
Right. Yeah.
For one, all right, look, I was like, wait, he didn't really need to have it on the whole time. Like, you're wasting the batteries, dude. Like, this is like, I don't know, maybe it's just the parent in me. Energy conservation, turn the lights off when you don't need it. But he's got a prisoner that he can't trust, so he needs to be like, no, this thing, you make one wrong move, this thing's going through your back.
Yep. Yeah, and it's the strongest weapon he has at this point. He's used all his everything else's.
Yeah, and he's got the spear, but he's holding the child, so that's a two-handed weapon. So, yeah, actually, I think he had the spear in his back, or
probably.
Yeah. But no, just a really cool thing. I did think when we first saw Mando use the spear, because if you looked at it closely when he first got it, it had some like ridges and stuff. Like I thought it was maybe going to be like one of expandable, collapsible. Kind of like the old lightsabers, how you'd swing them out and they go. I was kind of hoping it would do something like that, but
in the old Republic games, all the staff weapons worked that way.
Did they really?
Yeah, they would collapse like that. They would telescope.
I would love for him to have it melted down and kind of reworked into like a telescoping weapon, so he can kind of more easily put it on his belt and then whoosh when he needs to. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, so he walks in and. We get this great kind of scene of like, she's like, what happened? And Cara Dune's like, oh, we brought him in alive. Now we have to pay double. He's like, no, you dummy. She doesn't mean that. And then we get this great scene that gives us a lot of surprises for some people. And it makes some sense, but it's still a surprise. So
it was so well done by Katie Sackhoff here. She just, that whole scene was carried by her, and she knocked it out of the park.
I think Giancarlo Esposito did a great job in selling this too, because as he's got the bloody mouth, and he's sitting down there like he's beaten up, but he's still got an ace up his sleeve. He's like, "Ha! You're gonna have to kill him now. She's gonna have to kill you."
This was the Thanos has already snapped him out of existence, and he's like, "Whatever."
You should have gone for the head.
Yeah, you should have gone for the head. Like, it's just the whole, this was so good.
Now, it begs a lot of questions. So basically, to summarize, he says, you can't give someone the Darksaber. For it to have any meaning, you have to win it in battle. And he's like, well, here you can have it. And he's like, no, it doesn't have power. It's the story. So she has to, the fact that you defeated me in battle means now you have claim to Mandalore. And she's going to have to fight you. But at the same time, if you give it to her, she'll just be a pretender and it won't. Now, a lot of people were like, wait a second. Yeah. Sabine gave her the Darksaber in Rebels, and she had no problem at that point. And I think that's the main question people have right now. I mean, maybe she learned her lesson. Maybe that's why she failed. Or
maybe that's why she can't take it now, because it didn't work before.
Right. I think that there was... I'm willing to bet that we'll go back and when we do finally get the backstory to this, it's going to come out that they're like Death Watch or whoever, like some of the other clans were like, no, it should be Sabine. Sabine is the one who won it. Like, she's the one who beat Gar Saxon or whomever, I think it was Gar Saxon she beat because she used Ezra's lightsaber and she fought him. So people were ever since Maul. I mean, like, this really all goes back to Darth Maul, right? Or Pre Vizsla. Pre Vizsla was the first one that we saw to use the Darksaber.
Yeah, Pre Vizsla was the first one. I don't remember if they declared that he made it or if he got it.
It was made by Tar Vizsla, who was the first Mandalorian Jedi. That's the history that Star Wars Rebels gave us. But it found its way to be in the Jedi Archive, and I think Death Watch broke in and stole it. But then Darth Maul defeated Pre Vizsla in combat. Then he wielded it, and so kind of. And I'm curious, there's still some missing pieces of the puzzle after that, because then Darth Maul eventually fell to Palpatine. But then, what happened to it then, and how did it? Eventually it ended up being given to the Saxons, I guess. But they obviously didn't defeat Palpatine to get it. So I think that what's happened is anytime somebody has been given it, they haven't been successful. But you could argue that Maul was successful before losing the Darksaber, and and that's probably where the legend comes in. So unless you defeat somebody in combat, you're probably not going to be honored and respected by the other clans.
And it's a warrior culture anyway, so it needs to have that combat succession. Like you can't just you got to pay the iron price.
Oh, good reference. Good reference.
Like, yeah. So I think that's just kind of key to their culture. Like,
my question for you right now is: do you think that when he's trying to give it to her, and Gideon's laughing, explaining all this, is she in the back of her mind thinking, "All right, do I kill him now, or is she planning that out? Do you think?"
Yeah. She's already her brain is already going like, do I try and take him now? We've got the assassin here. We've got the drop trooper here. Mm-hmm. Gideon's probably going to try and make an escape or do something with it. Like, she's outnumbered at this point.
Yeah. And it's weird because her character is so interesting. Like, we talked about her earlier. She's not evil.
No.
And she has a code of honor. If she is lawful neutral, like you said, he's her ally. He's sworn to help her in this particular mission. So to attack him would be very dishonorable in the middle of the mission.
It would dishonor her legacy to that heritage as well. Right. She's flat out just got to call him out on an equal ground footing.
Yeah.
And they have to fight it out that way. That's the only acceptable option, I think, for her.
Yeah. I feel like this is worthy of like a how it should have ended, because if I'm in Din Djarin's shoes right now and I'm handing it to her, it's like, she won't take it. Oh, okay. Well, hey, Moff Gideon, you know what? I'm going to let you have this back. Go ahead.
There you go.
You can use my spear, and then let her finish him off. Cara Dune will be annoyed. Cara Dune will be like, right. We were supposed to bring him. It was like, I saved you some money. Don't worry. She's going to defeat him. Like, let me take his handcuffs off. You can fight him.
Right.
Let me get the kid out of here so he doesn't end up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
I dig it.
That would have been granted. Some things have to be left for theatrical purpose so we can have it, because this is a really, really, really great launch point. This is maybe the best, the second best part of the episode right here. Is this whole setup.
Has so much more potential.
Exactly.
So I'm good with it.
My biggest question about the future here is, what does she want more? To lead? To be the leader and the wielder of the Darksaber? To be the famous person? Does she want the celebrity? Or does she want Mandalore united? She obviously failed once. Perhaps her best chance right now is to be his ally and to guide him towards reuniting Mandalore. Because it could go one way or another, and it's really, and I could see whenever this story continues, this particular arc, it could really go deep into her motivations and her struggling with that decision. Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the whole saying of, sometimes the best leaders are the ones who don't seek the position.
Yeah.
And so she absolutely did seek the position.
Yes.
And look at where it got her. He's not seeking the position. Mm-hmm. What could that mean for him?
It also could. I wouldn't be surprised.
And is she mature enough now to recognize that?
Yeah, because she's much older. I think in the story right now, she's probably got to be pushing 50.
55-ish, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think there's just so much here that this is one of my favorite parts of the whole episode. I absolutely loved it, and it gives you so much. You could even toss in a little bit of Lord of the Rings here about how the Darksaber has a certain relationship to the One Ring, and that while it brings power, it seems to be cursed.
Right.
So I wouldn't, and of course, invoking Lord of the Rings is always a good thing to do for storytelling. I mean, it's you kind of can't go wrong pulling some Tolkien, borrowing from Tolkien a little bit. But yes, so yeah, I would love to see her become like an advisor or an enforcer to Din Djarin, and maybe really the neck that turns the head in a lot of cases. And if you want some conflict later down the road, maybe the jealousy eventually takes over. And maybe she does fight him. Maybe she loses. And then how does she deal with that? Oh my gosh, so much, right?
Maybe she blows up the Mandalorian temple while they're all in it.
Maybe. Maybe. Hey, maybe she finds some of the old red and black Mandalorian armor and dons that. All right. Oh man, what if we get to see Mandalorians? Like a cult? Like there's like
a cult of them.
A cult of them?
They did the cult of Revan in the Old Republic MMO. So I mean, stranger things have happened.
How much? Oh my gosh! All right, so what if that's what's actually holding Mandalore? Is you got an Imperial presence backed by some actual descendants of Mandalorians, like, or what I think they were like super commandos or whatever. But yeah,
right.
Like that would be a force, especially if you had the Empire combined with a few Mandalorians too. That makes for some good TV, my friend. We should be. You know what? We should talk to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and be like, we should bring us on board.
I've met Sam Witwer. We could probably like get him together and work on that.
You said you were gonna do that. You said you were gonna bring Sam.
We could collaborate.
Look. Sam Witwer is now on what's that little service where you can get like a little personal video from somebody? Cameo.
I've heard about those.
Cameo. Yeah. He's now on Cameo. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna get a Sam Witwer cameo just to say hi to me. And I'm like, $75. I'm like, is it worth $75?
I'm actually that way. The picture I got with him, I didn't pay for. I bumped into him in the hotel and got a picture with him there. Same with Jeremy Bulloch. Rest in peace.
Yes. Rest in peace, Jeremy Bulloch. Original Boba Fett.
Yeah. Yep. I met him at a party and then waiting for a cab and got a picture with him after chatting with him for a while. Sam was a little busier, so I didn't really get to talk to Sam too much, but he was kind enough to like stop for a photo and, especially wearing 501st gear, like they're usually a little more like, hey, you guys do good things for us. Well, usually the actors are a little more like willing to hang out or say hi or stop for a photo, but it's kind of a rule I have, like for me personally, and not to knock anybody who's done it. If I'm going to get an autograph or something like that, I don't want it to be a paid experience. I want it to be a little more natural, a little more.
I feel like it might mean a little more in that case. I can understand that. At the same time, I can also understand the paying for it, especially when, like, I have a friend who made sure she got a Stan Lee. A couple of Stan Lee,
Stan Lee, how are you ever going to get that close to that man?
Yeah, exactly. Or in some cases, you could say the same thing for Mark Hamill. It's going to be really, really difficult to get to meet him, and not to knock Sam Witwer, but he's not quite at that legendary level yet.
No,
so although in my opinion, he is.
They're going to have an entourage. They're going to have a planned in and out of the building. They're going to have a planned in and out of the hotel. Things like that. You're not going to find them.
Right. Unless they come and find you.
Right. Yeah. And we've done that where we've had dinners or things like that, and they'll go to the party or something like that. But yeah, you're not going to get them otherwise.
Right. Yeah. But no, it is much cooler to interact with people kind of outside of a setting too, because then it feels like it's more genuine. Like if they're able to talk with you a little bit, like I would love to just sit down and have coffee with Katie Sackhoff.
My chat with Jeremy Bulloch had nothing to do with Star Wars. We were talking about his family and his kids, and what he was going to do travel wise. Like, I don't even think we talked about Star Wars at all, And for me, I don't know.
I wonder if he was watching the show at all, or I wonder. I always wonder about stuff like that. I feel like somebody else is playing Boba Fett now, but that was my character, and there's reasons for it, but I can imagine being a little potentially upset.
I know he was always a fan of it, and he had his own armor. And I think Daniel Logan has his own armor too, and looks amazing in it. And
there's somebody else who I know a lot of people wanted to see him come back and play Boba, and I can see the argument there, but I think
in this timeline, I'm glad it's Tamira Morrison, and I have no complaints with it. I haven't interacted with him, but every interaction I've seen with him, he's humble and he's into it and he's a fan and he's like, I love that he got another chance to do the character.
He's perfect age,
if you will. Yeah.
Perfect age and perfect level of like almost like Clint Eastwood old man badassery, right?
Yeah.
Just love it. So around this time, we get before they can really resolve the whole who's going to take the Darksaber, we get some warning lights that hey, those Dark Troopers, they finally caught back up with the ship after I'm assuming the ship was in motion. You know, if nothing else, the inertia was carrying it, and they were blown out of the airlock a little bit. So, you know, they not sucked out, but blown out. And,
right.
So they had to make a.
I have played Kerbal Space Program, and I do understand a little bit how physics and space work.
Yeah, just a little bit. So they had to catch up. They caught back up, and we get a beautiful scene of them coming in, landing, and boom. You know, like 2 of them go to the top, 2 of them stay down below, 2 of the squads. So it's again looks like a full platoon to me. And they get up and they make their way to the bridge, and then they just start, you know, punching. And of course, this techno music is playing the whole time. It's almost like Mortal Kombat.
So we saw, granted, the characters didn't see this, but we did. We saw how easy it was to turn them on. Why didn't they just turn them off? They're in the bridge. They're in the bridge.
Well, you probably needed Gideon's access code, right? You know, or his I don't know.
So the officer, his second in command,
the comm officer, yeah,
she used her code cylinder. Which, by the way, thank you, Dave Filoni, for using the dosimeters as a code cylinder. Because I don't know if everybody's familiar, but those dosimeters that they use are actually dosimeters, which are used to gauge radiation levels. That's what they actually. That's in real life what those items are. And then through the course of you know, books and legends media and all that fun stuff, everybody was like, oh, those are code cylinders. They use them for code terminals and blah, blah, blah. Well, and then conceivably you could use the same port maybe that R2 uses to jack into everything. But in real life, they're actually radiation readers for, and if you're in a Death Star that's emitting massive amounts of radiation, that also could be useful to know what rad levels you're at.
That's actually not a bad assessment. I want to point something out. I think this is the first Star Wars show or series or media that we've ever seen that they don't have a droid. Right? Like Mando doesn't have
one. You mean like a sidekick? Because even Fallen Order has one.
Yeah, like he doesn't have anybody that can jack into computer terminals. Because wouldn't this have been a time where, hey, R2, see what you can do about those Death Troopers? You know, and he shuts them down. You know,
no, shut all the blast doors.
Yeah, shut down. Okay, shut down everything on the ship. Okay, well, he shut down life support now too, and then you have a different problem. But it's certainly, hey, we've got helmets, so you know. Oh, Gideon, I guess you don't have one. You know, all right, Cara Dune doesn't have one either, so we're gonna have to, you know, share our oxygen with her periodically. But like that, but yeah, like classic things. Like this is them. This is what they. We always make fun of, like, oh, isn't R2, like, why is he on the team? I'm like, this is why you always bring an astromech or something like that, right? Yeah, no, so really funny stuff. And then all of a sudden...
Honestly, they didn't have a tech person.
Actually, the closest to a tech person they had was the blue guy from Carl Weathers' episode, the Mistral. He did seemingly everything in that episode, you know? Right. Yeah. But yeah, they could have used a Lobot or a C-3PO or something like that. But they're all, you know, these are all tanks. These are all fighter classes, and they really needed a mage or something like that here.
Right.
But but here they are all kind of staring down the door. I mean, I love a great scene. And then we get a little beep and like, oh, incoming ship. And it's,
so if I'm Ming-Na Wen in that, I'm standing behind the Beskar.
Probably.
Like she's the sniper and has the least armor. Like even Cara Dune has more armor there. Why is she the Vanguard?
That's a really good question. I think she was kind of.
I would be perched up behind that command console. I would have heavy cover.
Yeah. That's probably a good idea. Yeah. But then we get the X-wing flying in, and it's and
that was such a good shot.
As soon as this showed up, I was like, okay, it's Luke. I'm like,
all right, so pause. Let's go back an episode. Okay. Because I didn't watch your last episode of this.
Okay.
On your list of who it could be.
Okay.
Who was your list of who it could be?
Well,
prior to you seeing the X-wing, who is the Jedi that's going to come meet you? Who's going to come meet Grogu?
I thought I had two at the top of my list that were tied. One was Cal Kestis. I thought Cal Kestis was at the top of my list because
interesting. I'm not that far in the game, but
okay. Well, spoilers. I guess he's not obliterated. He still exists.
He doesn't get obliterated. Yes. Cool. Yeah.
but yeah, certainly I thought that would be a cool tie-in, and here's a character they can do a lot with. But the other one, the one that I probably wanted most, was an all-new character. I wanted an unknown Jedi that maybe we had some questions about their motives, and we didn't, like, maybe they were kind of mysterious. I mean, especially the dude showing up in black. Like, wait, the Jedi don't wear black. Should we trust this guy? Find out next season, you know? Because it opens so many doors, and it also allows you to learn about a character as opposed to just having like a fan service moment. Now, I also thought it was possible that we could get Mace Windu or Luke, but I didn't really want it to be that, because I thought, I'm like, well, now that would make it all like everything is about the Skywalker saga if Luke Skywalker.
I saw the Mace stuff, and I don't get it, honestly. I don't understand the Mace stuff.
A lot of it has to do with Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson wants back in Star Wars. And since all had happened is he got his hands cut off and then pushed out a window,
right?
He was a strong enough dude to survive that, and the actor still wants
been through worse.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're going to see more Sam Jackson. I think we're going to find out what happened to him after he got out of there. Granted, he obviously didn't try to reconnect with Yoda or or maybe he did. Maybe the Obi-Wan show is an opportunity for them to be like, "What has happened to you? Look how far you've fallen." You know. Who knows? Like they could.
I'm kind of with chat here that Ezra was a good possibility. He wasn't on my list, but honestly, my first pick was Luke. Like, but deniability. We know how old Mark is.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Sebastian Stan would have made a lot of sense. I thought it was going to be Sebastian Stan for sure.
Yeah. There's so many issues. There's so many problems with it. At the same time. Man, this couldn't now having watched it, it couldn't have been anybody but Luke.
I'll say this. I thought that this was Sebastian Stan the whole time. And a lot of it has to do with, look, Sebastian Stan, when they make him up to look like Luke, looks just like Mark Hamill. Like they're almost doppelgangers. So it wouldn't be surprised. I feel like this is going to sound weird, but like I feel like there's only like maybe 20 types of people in the world, and everybody is kind of a clone of one of them, right? Like certain people just kind of fit into different molds, and Sebastian Stan and Mark Hamill are in that same mold where they're just, you know, they're type 13.
Like your doppelganger YouTuber that I just shared with you. Did you look at him at all?
I did. I
swear in another world.
I don't see it, but I mean, I see how you could come with that, but you know, everybody's more critical of themselves. But
I'm the same way. When people send me doppelgangers, I'm like, no. But yeah,
Yeah,
I saw it and I was just like, "Is that Tim?"
But I'm always hoping that somebody will say that, and like they'll pick some super buff dude, and I'm like, no, I see how you thought that, but no, but yeah, so like, what the whole time, like I didn't think it would be Luke because I was afraid it was going to be a little too like that's going to steal the focus from the show. But I also said, like, and I remember talking to my friend Sean, and I'm like. But then again, it may be Luke, and if so, I'm be curious how they can do it in a way that he doesn't overshadow the whole show from this point forward. And I think they found a good way to do that. So
I think they delivered on it.
Yeah. So I think it was kind of interesting to see. Somebody says Leia. That would be a possibility.
Leia would have been a good one too.
Oh my!
Leia would have been a good one too. The beauty of this, though, is realistically, look at what happened. Look at what was done in the previous episode. Who would have gotten that ping, right? And who would be significant enough to be able to respond to that ping? And I think Ezra falls in that one. I don't know enough about Cal to check that box. Mm-hmm. Leia maybe would still be in that training. Like we know that she has sense. She has that ability. She's obviously got some control. Because she's able to handle that later, but that's much later still.
Yeah, she could have. What would have been even more awesome if she came with Luke,
and that would have been bomb as an apprentice. Yeah, that would have been bomb.
Yeah, but so here's the one thing that really made me think, Cal. In Fallen Order, there are save circles that you come to. These little circles of like glyphs and stuff like that. And it was very, very, very similar to that circle that they put Grogu on, the runes around it. So that was what made me think, hey, is that a subtle Easter egg for Cal Kestis? But I was almost certain it wasn't going to be Ezra. I mean, there was enough rumors that I was like, well, maybe it is, but I didn't want it to be Ezra because I feel like the whole purpose of having Ahsoka in there was to be like a launch point for, hey, this is right before Ahsoka leaves with Sabine at the end of Rebels to go look for Ezra. If Ezra's here, then what in the heck are they going to look for? And I feel like it invalidates. It's like finding the Holy Grail before you set off on the quest, you know.
Yeah.
And so that would have been a big problem for me. But
and the imagery here of just the lone X-wing, and immediately I knew who it was immediately.
Yeah.
And my wife,
this scene right here, when it's coming in, they show it on the viewport. I don't know if you guys caught this, but they play a little bit of the Luke's theme, the da 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 da. It's the same theme that plays when Yoda raises the X-wing out of the swamp. But they blended that into the Mandalorian's theme, so you only get a few notes of it, and then they kind of. So it was subtly there, and this is when the tears started flowing for me. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I did this."
My wife didn't get it. She was like, "Well, who is it? I don't get it. Who is it?" And I'm like, "Kara, there's one person who has their own personal X-wing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they teased. Now, a lot of people when they first saw this, the people who aren't maybe diehard fans, were thinking, "Well, we've already seen a couple of X-wings. It's probably like Dave Filoni or you know, or it's one of these other guys."
Can you imagine if it had been Dave Filoni? It's like, oh, gotta save these guys.
Dave Filoni rides in on a Loth Wolf and uses like hyperspace teleporting all over to like kick down this. Oh my god, yeah.
But no, like do it like his character in the show where he's just like, oh, Dark Troopers, let me get and he just get the ion gun.
I'm just gonna I'm just setting a couple of thermal detonators and we're getting out of here. There's people on the bridge. Oh well.
Thermal detonators.
There's escape pods on the bridge too.
Yeah. Like his just lackadaisical doesn't care like when is my shift over attitude. Like maybe not the best choice, but
so this was this was just great and seeing it all over like the little my wife brought up this point, so I'm going to give her credit for this. She's like, it's so funny they've got all this amazing technology, but the TVs look like they're from the 1970s. And I'm like, yeah, they do. Because they are from the 1970s.
The consoles are from the 1970s. They got to keep it a system.
It's beautiful. I love it. And the whole hooded thing, I'm like, I like the whole, I mean, this was more confirmation, but I'm like, they're playing it quiet because not everybody's going to know. And so there's just a gradual buildup. But then part of me is like, wait, are they playing it too quiet? Like, is this another arrow? Like, is it not Luke? Could it be somebody else? Right. And
but once you started seeing the belt buckle,
is what gave it away for me.
Yeah. Belt buckle. And then the one glove that was
well, the green, because for the first couple of scenes, it's in black and white. And then so Bo-Katan goes, a Jedi. And at this point, Gideon, his face turns to genuine fright for the first time, which makes me wonder so much about his past.
Yeah.
Dude knows a lot more than we're led to believe. I wonder if he was perhaps maybe an Inquisitor in training or something like that for a little while, you know?
Yeah.
Because he had a little bit of prowess with the blade, and he seems to know things about Grogu. And, you know, like there's just enough information to be like, his backstory could be a lot of different things, but he knows about the Jedi.
He probably even has a list of Jedi, like, that he knows of. And it's not very long.
And Luke Skywalker is definitely known. Like, Luke Skywalker blew up the first Death Star. He's like, as far as the Imperials are concerned, he's public enemy number one. And he's a Jedi. Yeah, so, no doubt about it. And he also, if he's a lifelong Imperial, too, he probably views the Jedi as terrorists. You know, it's like saying Al Qaeda or something like that. You know, so
if Al Qaeda had a freaking Archmage,
so like Al Qaeda has nukes and they're on our ship. Oh, you know, that's kind of his expression. Like he's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna. And this is where he turns desperate. But then they show you then it goes from black and white, so you see the green lightsaber, and I'm like, and just every one of these scenes.
I'm a big fan of the actual combat having the cloak on. Because they kept the cloak on like the whole time. The hood. And that's because I like to wear hoods a lot, and I know how
you did at the beginning of this video.
Yeah. And I know, I know how limiting they are in your visibility. I know that moving around, you can get them stuck. They also can like limit your neck movement a little bit. And here he is doing all these things. I know he's a Jedi Master,
Yeah.
but like it just was kind of impractical.
It's rule of
But
cool. It's absolutely
it was
rule of
cool. It was 100%. It's
yeah.
what it needed to be for the scene. But I'm just like, this is so impractical.
Well, I honestly thought about like how stupid is it for like the longest time until I went to go work and I in a computer facility that is very cold, and now I keep my hoodie on all the time because your ears get cold, and in space, guess what? It's pretty freaking cold. So you know what?
Yep.
I'm willing to give the Jedi a pass on the whole hood thing. I think they should wear them more often. You keep their heads warm.
So this shot here, we kind of grazed off it, but the two ladies without jetpacks were going forward, and the two ladies with jetpacks popped off and went down.
I know.
And then they come back up on the stormtrooper squad, and I was just like, yeah.
I liked that one too. It was one of those things I just like, we've got like 10 minutes of just shooting stormtroopers. Let me kind of graze on through that. But that was a very cool scene on this bridge.
It was really, really cool shot.
And it shows you how experienced those Mandalorians are as far as tactics and combat too. It's like they're like, no, we're in a very vulnerable position right now. Let's turn that into our strength as opposed to our weakness. And they did a great job with it. So Luke is coming through. Gideon grabs a blaster. He kind of found one. It was one of the, I think, the fallen Imperial blasters from one of the bridge officers or something on the ground. Yeah.
And they did a good job of showing and building up to, it's like, when is he going to grab the blaster? Mm-hmm. What is going to be his moment that he's going to, is he going to get away?
And it's not until after the Jedi shows up. I think this is not a planned, calculated escape attempt. This is a desperation move.
Yeah. This was not the move he wanted to make. This is the move he had to make.
Yeah, because he shoots Bo-Katan's right there, so he shoots her up. I thought she was dead. The first time watching, because I didn't even see her stand back up. I thought she was dead because he shot her a lot, and they did a good job of, while Beskar still can protect you, you're still getting impact. Well, we've seen that a number of times. But then he turns his blaster towards the child. And this is how I know it's desperate. He wants that child. He still does. But he's like, but I'm dead. So I can't let them have anything either. And you go back to like episode 3, I think, when that one Imperial officer electrocutes himself. It's like, no, we're not going to give them anything.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But Mando dives to protect the kid. I love this. I love that selfless. Like, this is his son.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And of course he turns the gun on his own mouth. He's like, all right, well, fine. You know what? Final desperation move. And I love how even this one fails. Cara Dune smacks that gun out of him and just knocks him out. She's like, no, you are not off the hook.
He rolled triple despair there. His first plan didn't work. His second plan didn't work. And his third plan didn't work.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great analogy. These are all analogies to the Star Wars role-playing game, by the way, if you guys are not familiar. Great RPG system.
We've played together.
Which we have played together. Play is an interesting word. Yeah. we definitely played together. But yeah, so Cara Dune knocks him out, and the whole time Grogu is just watching.
Oh, God, that scene. Yeah, just...
He's like, this is who I've called to. I've talked to you. Like, and I'm... You even saw earlier, before Luke showed up, that Grogu's eyes were kind of like relaying coordinates or something. He's been in commune with Luke, and this is beautiful. And we get that final hallway scene, the final charge, where they're all ready for him, and he straight up goes, like, everybody's saying, oh, this is just like Rogue One, this is like father like son,
Yeah.
I'm going to say there's a little more to it than this. And obviously, yes, of course you can draw parallels to Rogue One, but the big difference here is that these are not living beings.
Right.
Luke is finally able. And look, say what you will about the sequel trilogies, I really liked episode 8 at the time because I thought it really showed Luke being a true Jedi at the end, and that he used it for knowledge and defense, not for attack. Here, these aren't alive. So he can absolutely, this is maybe the only situation that Luke would have truly been able to both be a Jedi and completely open up a can of whoop ass. And he went full throttle, and just, it was so beautiful.
David in chat mentioned the old West End Games RPG. I know that in the early 2000s Wizards ones, Force Grip or Choke or whatever is a dark side power, but you do not get dark side points using it on inanimate objects.
Ah, Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly. Oh man, he does so many great things, and I have a picture of him doing that. But this one right here, this move where he's got the lightsaber kind of in the reverse grip and he's using a force push at the same time, I think that's my new favorite look for Luke right there. Like, yeah. I want this as the next like Luke sculpt in Star Wars Legion.
There's one right a certain third-party sculpting person who could probably make that happen.
There's quite a few, as a matter of fact. I can think of 3 off the top of my head, and I think there's more than that. This is a version of Luke. So all you guys working on stuff, get this version of Luke like ASAP.
That was great pose.
It's so
great pose.
Now here's the thing: we know from the credits and of course from Mark Hamill himself that he actually was Luke. I don't think Mark Hamill actually did all of these stunts. I
don't think so either. My wife was like, "Oh, they blah blah," and I'm like, "I think I was."
I think there was some shared credit, right?
Yeah. I think he had a fight. I think he had a fight coordinator.
And then, of course, he takes his time with the last one since he can kind of, and it just, oh man, he's really showing how strong Luke has become. And dude,
but it's still not crazy. Like, it's still not.
It's very controlled.
As much as I love Sam Witwer, good friend of mine, it's not Force Unleashed.
No, he's not pulling his Star Destroyers out of the sky, but this is
right.
This is a lot more controlled and calculated power, and like very very articulate, very controlled force. Precision.
Yes, where Starkiller was a ball of uncontrolled chaos and hatred. This is what has happened when you've honed your talent.
Yeah. Oh, it was magnificent.
This is what I would have been okay with Yoda doing.
Oh,
and I'm super in the camp of Yoda should have never ignited his lightsaber.
Yeah,
like a move like this would have been fine coming from Yoda.
I would have liked that. Also, since in Episode 7 we saw Kylo Ren kind of freeze the blaster bolts in the Force, I would have liked to see Yoda do stuff like that too.
Same thing. Yeah.
Hindsight is 20/20, but it's nice to know people with this type of vision are responsible for at least creating parts of Star Wars right now. So it's really really exciting. I love it. And this scene just.
My favorite Kylo moments, to be honest.
Oh, it was magnificent.
And it's like the first thing you see. It's like, oh, okay, this establishes the character and what they're capable of.
Say what you will about this pre-sequels, but like Episode 7 was enjoyable. It wasn't great, but it was good, and it was nice. It was nice to have a good Star Wars movie, Yeah. And then of course he comes through, and then this is where you get the full-on belt buckle and boots. And
hang on a minute.
Okay.
So those doors just open like they're supposed to. Like
they've been punched a lot.
There is no way that curved metal, like anything would have opened so clean.
No,
they don't pull away.
Luke used that same force pull ability to kind of fix, because what he can destroy, he can also he mended the doors. Yeah,
it must be.
Yeah, he mended.
I was just like, they've been smashing on that thing, and there's multiple layers. So those multiple layers of metal would have been woven together in a lock.
You could say that it was like this, and they just dented the one side in, but it still fit the overall profile of the door. Perhaps because they stopped punching pretty early. As a matter of fact, as soon as the droids that were at the bottom, it's like, hey, there's an X-wing coming. The guys up top stopped. It's like, oh, we might have to worry about something else, which was a little convenient, but it was all right.
Right.
And then when he takes off the hood, I'm curious, what was your instant reaction?
About the same as when they did the Leia one and the what was it? Tarkin was the other one, right?
Yeah, Tarkin and
it's about the same. It's like, you know what? I've played enough video games with characters like that. I mean, Luke was in Jedi Academy, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
so it doesn't bother me too much as a gamer, but at the same time, I'm looking at it going, it's not perfect.
Yeah, that was me out. So at first, I looked at it and I was like, oh well, that's not. Because it's in Uncanny Valley a little bit. It looks different. Just certain things about it are kind of off. And it was kind of hard to see. Like the dimple in the chin looked a little more pronounced than usual. So my very first reaction was, that's Sebastian Stan. I thought it was Sebastian Stan right away. And I was like, boy, but he looks really different. Because I've only seen like the deep fakes. And so when you see somebody for real, they might surprise you a little bit. So I knew something was off, and then I looked a little closer. I'm like, is it Sebastian Stan with some CGI? Because maybe once they put the makeup on him, he didn't look like Luke enough. You know, I didn't know that this was Mark Hamill until the credits rolled.
Well, and it was only right that they give him credit, even if they had somebody else. I feel like at this point, that's Mark Hamill. That's his character. That's his identity. You know, like it's like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, that's a really fair point, and I've seen a lot of people say that. I'll admit I was in the camp of wanting to see Sebastian Stan take over Luke, but that's for selfish reasons, because I want an entire Luke series, and I don't think Mark Hamill, because I don't think they probably have the budget to de-age Luke to be the main character of a 7-season series in every single episode, right? So to do something that long term, you'd need to get a new actor.
And they shot some of this scene was shot very well to cut out Luke's head for certain shots with other characters that are about to show up in case you've got them on your slideshow. Like there are angles that are much lower that don't show his face.
Oh yeah, no, there is an awful lot. They show his face a lot, and some of it looks pretty good. Like this scene right here, it does look good, but it looks like it's out of a very high end video game, and so it looks a little out of place.
I had an issue with the hair a little bit, to be honest. I feel like it was too tight to the head.
Okay.
Like maybe he got a different haircut that week or something.
Yeah, it was a different now, and that's one thing I'm okay with, because I feel like, okay, well, they do things like he had the hood on and he was fighting, so it's going to be ruffled a little bit, and it's probably just a different hairstyle. So all of those things are fine with me, but I definitely knew something was off. But the voice was definitely Mark Hamill's voice. And I'm actually curious. I cannot wait to see the behind the scenes for this episode in particular. Because they're going to pull him in for a gallery episode. I want to see him dressed up in the black. I want to see the unedited version of this scene. I don't know if they'll ever show it to us, but I definitely want to see. Because I think he must have shaved. Because we've always seen him with the beard ever since Force Awakens. Now, he used to not run it. But then once he came back for episode 7, he contractually had to grow a beard, and he made it seem like he didn't like the beard. But now that it's gone, or at least I'm assuming it was gone. I hope He
didn't have a beard in Flash, did he?
I stopped watching Flash after the 2nd episode because there was too much teenage angst love drama for me. So
okay, yeah. So he plays the not Joker in Flash at one point.
Okay,
and it's 100% Joker. But I don't think he had facial hair for that.
Okay. I'm curious when in proximity to the sequel trilogy that was filmed, but yeah,
probably kind of close-ish.
Yeah, maybe right before. Before. But yeah, so no, I absolutely loved this. I was crying the whole time, and
it's not you, but man, I was sitting there choked up so bad.
Granted, I am a dude. I have no problem crying. It feels good to have a good cry from time to time. My problem was I was at work.
Yeah,
and I snuck out into the break room to watch this, and I'm like, I really hope nobody. I'm sitting there like in the corner, and I literally have my hand up and come in front of my face while I'm watching on my phone, and I had to do this because I logged on to Twitter. I thought I was just going to wait till my lunch break, and I shouldn't have got on the social media, but Luke Skywalker hashtag was all over the place, and I'm like, that was my thing. Is like I was certain it was going to be a new Jedi or Cal Kestis. I didn't think they would bring Luke into it. And
I reported I think it was Screen Rant or something on Facebook for sharing private images because they were talking about Luke Skywalker on like today or yesterday or whatever. I was like, don't be doing that. Screw you guys.
Oh, I know. It's so frustrating, and especially as a content creator too. You want to put out videos, you want to put out thumbnails that are like Luke, like you want to do it like day of, like you want to get it out there Friday by noon because so many people are like going crazy about it, but it's kind of irresponsible or it's rude to do that because that's going to get shared. As soon as somebody even sees that thumbnail, it's going to be like, the best you can do is just have a generic thumbnail with, the Mando's helmet and be like, we're going to talk about this week's episode. But then that's not going to get any clicks. So like I see the desire to do it. And that's why I'm just like, you know what? We're going to wait a couple of days before I do my Mando chat. That's just going to be the way it is.
I feel like it's on us as a culture, as a society, which granted, I know we're not everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But it's on us to not click those links.
Yeah, but the problem is when somebody shares it and like, even if you don't,
it's on us to not click those, not share those, not subscribe to those if they're going to go and do that. Like,
it's tough. It is really it's a difficult balance to walk, because if you're friends with people, and all it takes is for one of your friends to comment on something, and sometimes it shows up in your feed or whether it's Facebook or Twitter or what have you, or even on a Discord, somebody can, people accidentally let stuff slip sometimes, and it's tough. And at the end of the day, the good news about this show is that while this whole moment with Luke was so spoilery, and it's amazing that they were able to keep it secret for so long, because he shot this, I think, back in March.
They had to have,
yeah. I mean, some people are actually filming now. They're doing what the NBA did, is they put people in quarantine, and then once they've all gone through quarantine, now they can film together, but they can't mingle outside of that until filming is wrapped. And that's a smart way to do it, and it's a responsible way to do it. Good for them. Not going to be easy, because it means you can't see your family while filming, but you just got to get everything done really, really quick.
Yeah, it's definitely not what WWE is doing right now.
Yeah, we could go. That could be a whole different tangent right now, but
I'm just gonna leave it there.
Unfortunately, but there's consequences for things like that, But yeah, the fact that we were able to keep this quiet for so long was amazing. But the good news is the episode, and not just this one, but all of them, are good enough on their own for the most part, that it's not really about spoilers. Although the spoilers are huge, they're good to watch on their own.
Yeah,
and that's a testament to it. So he tells Mando that his child wants permission, and that's why he's not leaving. And you get this. This is honestly, this is when it really got teary eyed, because you were.
This one is bad. This was really heavy.
This was because he's like, you're already exhilarated, right? Like I'm watching this as a fan and as a super geek, and I'm like, I'm already like on a 9.9 of hype level for seeing everything that I've just seen over the last 10 minutes, and now all of a sudden I've got to deal with the dad losing his son as a father of three. Our whole household was a sobbing mess. I've got one child who was totally immune to this, and he looked around and he's like, wow. It's really interesting that all of you are crying except for me, and I'm like, shut up. But no,
get him some help. He might be a serial killer in the future.
He's awesome. He's just he just looks at the world differently, but he's amazing. But that's one of the things I love about him, and it's we're just like, yep, we sure are, and it's okay. It's a teaching moment to teach your kids. It's absolutely okay to cry, especially when something this sad is happening. And of course, Din takes off his helmet because baby was like, I've never seen your face, and he's like, this is my face, and he does this in front of everybody.
Right. Yeah.
This is amazing. This is a powerful moment.
It was so heavy.
We've seen it come off a couple of times.
Yeah, the everything in the last 2 seasons led to that moment right there.
Yeah.
We've seen it, everything from the ball on the control stick to the girl at the village who wanted him to stay
and I loved episode 4. That was that was
a great episode.
That gave him a shot of what life might be like, and how it was denied to him.
And then even the foreshadowing in last episode of what's your line, what's the line you're going to cross, and where do you draw that line, and we found out where that line was.
I mean, this whole season, I feel like season 1 and season 2 were really just one big book, one cohesive story. But the second season had this theme of like, what does it really mean to be a Mandalorian?
Right. Yeah.
Season 1, he kind of earns the armor, and season 2 is like, now that I've got all of this, what does it mean to keep it, and is it worth it, and who am I, and what an incredible journey. And I feel like the show kind of wrapped with the departure of this kid, and he kind of still didn't want to go, but oh my goodness, if it wasn't adorable to see R2-D2 roll out. Like, honestly, that hit me too. That was just one more like punch of tears, and it was like, and it was more of a happy kind of like a.
It wasn't comedic like a lot of 3PO scenes end up being, and even some R2 scenes end up being.
It was warm.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was warm, and it was friendly, and it brought us back to he's going to get to join those guys.
Yeah. It's like, hey, get in my van, little kid. It's okay. I've got a puppy,
Yeah.
Wait, no, maybe not like that, but
not quite like that.
But yeah, like R2 was welcoming and friendly, and the kid in me was just like, I remember the first time I saw R2D2, and he was like one of the first things that made me think this is cool and this is gonna, and R2 was like and they had a great little reaction, and R2 leaned forward and started going, and Grogu liked him, and he's like, oh, yeah, Mister, you're pretty scary with that lightsaber, but you've got a cool droid, and like I could just see. It transcended language, because you could see, if it was a real child, you know what he would say. It would be a cute little dialogue, but this scene transcended language, and it was beautifully done. And of course, we get the kind of the goodbye there with everybody kind of, and Mando keeps his helmet off and he's saying goodbye, and like this is great, and the doors close, and everybody, they're all saying goodbye, and this is kind of where it wraps. The credits roll. And that's all I've got. All right, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. There's nothing more. Wait, hold on. There's a post-credit scene. So I wanted to do a post-credit scene for...
Were you really going to skip that? Or was that planned?
That was planned. I'm like, yeah, that's... I normally wouldn't grab a screenshot of the credits.
Okay.
But yeah, so I meant to tell you that beforehand. I wanted you to kind of chime in on me. I was like, all right, guys, thank you so much, and it's been a great one. Yeah,
if you pregame that, I would have leaned into it totally.
Yeah. So for those of you who did not, who basically for those of you who closed the video at this point, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, and it pans out back to Tatooine. You see the twin suns. We go down to Jabba's palace, and we see that Bib Fortuna's been living pretty large in the absence of his old boss.
Not only that, but the girl with the crazy spiky pink hair is still in the background.
Yes, and she was the one that Boba was like flirting with in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, which is really cool. Now, I think that was only the special edition version. I don't believe. Right. I think she was added in the special edition.
I don't think she existed at all originally. I have the old VHSs, but I don't have anything to play it on anymore.
Yeah, VHSs are hard to find nowadays. Or I need to get one of those things where you convert VHS to digital, because I got a lot of home movies.
Yeah.
But like, it's ridiculous. If you go to like Walgreens or like one of these places, these services that they'll put your... First off, like last time I tried to do it, they would only put it on a DVD. And I'm like, I don't even have a freaking drive in my computer. I just want the MP4. Yeah. I just want the digital. They give me a USB stick.
I have an external to plug in for this. My rig does not have a bay.
Most don't anymore, unless you custom order it.
I built it, and we plugged one in just to run Windows on it, and that was it. And then we removed it.
You've got USB for all that stuff, so you don't really, but yeah, so I wanted to get all that VHS stuff. I've still got my old THX, which was kind of like the ultimate version of Star Wars, right? It was the most remastered but least touched. You still have Yub Nub at the end. You still had Lopti Neck playing during Jabba's scene. The original musical number, not that do 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 do.
Yeah, I have the last version they released before special edition.
Yeah,
I have that VHS set.
Yeah, that was good stuff, and that's what I grew up on. That's what I cut my teeth on as a teenager who got his first TV and VCR in like middle school and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? All right, it's Friday. We're watching the Star Wars trilogy. Like, and every Christmas, it was always playing on like FX or whatever or USA or whatever the network was that was playing movies, and the Star Wars trilogy played every time, lots during Christmas time. So Star Wars is all about Christmas for me, or vice versa. Anyway. I actually want to do Christmas carols. I want to do an album of Christmas carols where I sing them all, but I replace all mentions of Jesus with Yoda or Grogu. Grogu is probably more applicable, but he'd probably be less... I think that would upset a lot of people, though. It's probably a little too edgy, but, to me, Christmas is so much about Star Wars for me. But... All right. Anyway, now that I've just lost half of my subscribers for speaking blasphemy, we're gonna go on and basically Boba and Fennec Shand come down, just kill everybody.
Yep.
Minus
he grabs a drink and hangs out.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the most beautiful scene. It's hard to say because there were some really great scenes in the episode, but this scene is absolutely majestic. Because this really reminds me of Conan, like Conan sitting on that throne.
it's super Conan or Conker's Bad Fur Day if you're into that, like that whole just what Riddick had this shot too, whether you like that movie or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. This screams like 1980s badass cinema, like the Saturday afternoon, like when like those great movies from the 80s are playing on TV. And this is like how one would begin, right?
And it was the same lighting too, like that gritty kind of not really well lit. Yeah, I really love this, and I loved that. Again, I'm just a huge Ming-Na Wen fan. I love that she's in this, that she didn't just get dumped off somewhere
me too.
Like anything like that. I love that she's now his counterpart.
And I love that. I like the way that they worded the whole thing, that she's in his service, but she's not like his girlfriend or something like that. Like she is an equal, well, I don't know exactly on how all the politics is going to work, but as far as we can tell, she's an equal shareholder in the Boba Fett Academy right now, right?
Yeah, at the very least, she's the second in command.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, and that's not a bad thing. And actually, that's not to jump too much ship there. That's what I wish they had done with Kylo and Rey. That they were this sort of equal standing. They didn't need to have that kiss at the end. They just needed that respect and that understanding that they're both in this together in the same situation.
Oh.
Like I didn't need that kiss at the end of 9.
That's not the problem I had with 9, but I had very different problems. We all had, and well, we can get into 9 in a little bit, but this is basically, it ends with the Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021.
Yep.
So this is really the big question that we all have for all of this. Is the book of what is the Book of Boba Fett, right? I don't think it's a book. I don't think it's going to be a movie. I think the Book of Boba Fett, and you guys in the chat or Brendon, let me know what you think. I don't think we're going to see Mandalorian Season 3 be about Din Djarin's story anymore. I think Mandalorian Season 3 is, because in the same way that Season 1 and 2 were chapters, which kind of draw parallels to books, I think Season 3 is starting, is going to start with Chapter 1. So it'll be Season 3, Episode 1, Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1. And so I think there's a reason they named the show The Mandalorian as opposed to Din Djarin, and that it's just going to be about a different Mandalorian at different times. But it could be a totally different show too. There could be multiple shows in December.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your idea as being good. I like your idea a lot. I still feel like Din could have his own story and could still be going. I don't think you have.
You're thinking kind of like, look, Din's story's not done, and so I'm not suggesting that like we don't hear from Din again. I just think sometime Ezra and stuff, exactly 1 year after that, it might be several years. For all we know, Din Djarin could be a major player in the Rebels follow-up. Maybe that is all. Maybe the retaking of Mandalore is one of those things that comes back into the storytelling, and that's one of the main arcs of after Ezra is found. Maybe Thrawn has something to do with that. Like there's a lot of room that they could go with that. Maybe they make a Bo-Katan show, and that's where Din Djarin. Maybe Din Djarin is just now cemented into the Star Wars culture enough that he can be now part of any medium. Just like how Ahsoka can be part of any show, she can cameo in there.
He could, yeah. He's definitely established now to a point where he could do that. And back to that shot you just had, like, how great would it be to have that same shot with Din on the throne of Mandalore?
I mean, that's a possibility. What I expect, here's what I think they're going to do, because Star Wars cannot tell stories in order. The next time we see Din, I think
the only thing worse than Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, Din Djarin, the Ocarina of Time. I think we're going to see like 15 years after, where Din is now broken, has lost all of his armor and stuff like that, and you're like, well, what happened? And then you're going to have to wait like probably 10 real life years to finally get that story, but
Yep.
you're already going to know how he ends up, so it's not going to matter. I don't know. That's my gripe, is I want to see stories from beginning to end. I hate getting stories like all over the place, but I don't know. It could be very interesting, and I'm going to go out on one because we've kind of finished the episode and we kind of speculate a little bit at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised if when they're definitely building towards a Rebels follow up. There was a number of characters there. I think the Ahsoka story is going to deal with that.
So hard, yeah. At the very least, it's definitely established the Filoni verse,
right? And I like to use the term verse there, because Ezra did something very cool in Rebels, which was the world between worlds.
Yep.
Right. Well, isn't that sort of like a multiverse? Or doesn't that create the possibility of alternate futures now? If Ezra can reach through time, yank somebody out, change something, couldn't he then go to like a Kylo Ren who is or to Luke Skywalker, who's about to confront his nephew, and make a mistake, and then kind of like, don't do this,
I've felt the same way about the whole Legends issue when everybody was like, "Oh no, they killed it. They killed everything."
It's just in a different universe.
It's a different universe. It still exists. It's just not in this one.
There's no new books for it right now.
Marvel and DC do it all the time. So why is it wrong for Star Wars to do it?
Exactly. And the problem is, a lot of people want them to like retcon 7, 8, 9. I have kind of a problem with that because, look, a lot of us, the internet's a lot bigger now than it was when the prequels came out. But imagine the exact same backlash happened after the prequels, and as a result, we never got the Clone Wars, and we never got Star Wars Rebels. And there can be good things. There is a possible way to salvage 7, 8, and 9, and it's through building that world around it. Well, I love the Clone Wars, and I love a lot of the characters in the Clone Wars, while I admit that the movies from the prequels weren't my favorites. The Clone Wars allowed me to look at them through a different light. I feel like some of the same things may happen with the sequel trilogy over time, but we'll have to see. But I think that kind of wraps everything up. Well, I don't know. You got any closing thoughts for this episode, or what do you things you hope to see in the future, or for 2021? Any big plans?
I'm good with it. I really like, again, whether they do Boba as a continuation of this series or whether they do it as its own thing. Honestly, I'm good with it either way. I think it's in the right hands. I think the right people are doing it. They've definitly course corrected here and done some great things with it for all the things we've already discussed. And again, even my wife, who, she enjoys it. She's not the ultra nerd that I am, but like, she enjoys it for the storytelling. She was so wrapped up in this episode. She was talking to the screen. She was so nervous, like genuine emotion, genuine reactions from somebody. That's good storytelling. And honestly, that's all we could ask for.
And it's really good to have a show that's good enough to entertain your spouse, or to have somebody else to watch with as well. And that at the same time is also kid appropriate. Like my youngest won't watch. He gets afraid because it's a little intense. But my older two will come out and watch, and they're into it every week, And they did all the right things with this. Because I feel like this is the end of an era. Like, this is a good stopping point for Din Djarin's story. Wow, at least for this page in his life.
Imagine if they had stopped Game of Thrones when the books ended.
It would have been great. Like, imagine we didn't know what happens to Jon Snow, right?
Yep.
And the books aren't. I don't think they're going to come back and do the books. I read all the books in between, like after season 5 of the show, and that was when that series was best. As soon as they went off,
it was at its height when it stuck to the books, and even then they deviated, but they deviated in such ways that it was still okay.
Exactly. You can like The Expanse does the same thing. They deviate. Sometimes it's like, look, we can't have 40 actors for this season. We can only have 20. So some people are going to have to get their stories merged.
Love The Expanse. Like, I need. Apparently, there's new episodes I need to catch up on. But
me too. I haven't started on the latest season yet, but I mean, the books are so much better. Oh, I can't wait for that final book. Oh.
Maybe I'll actually pick up reading again and grab those.
Yeah, the Expanse is 3 trilogies, but there's a time jump after the second trilogy and before the third trilogy. And they're not going to do, from what I heard, they're not going to do the third trilogy because that characters would have to be like 30 years older, and it's just not going to work. And I'm like, okay, well that's fine. Maybe you do it someday, you know.
Yeah.
But JJ's asking, will I cover Marvel series? I don't know. A lot of it has to do with how much new Star Wars products we're getting. If we're getting new waves of Legion and Armada and X-Wing and Atomic Mass Games is giving us updates and I have stuff to cover, then probably not. But if I am scraping the bottom of the barrel and I've got nothing Star Wars gaming to talk about, not to call Marvel the bottom of the barrel, but I mean, if I'm scraping my reservoir, I may have to borrow from a different reservoir.
For you.
Yeah, pomegranate?
No, it's off-brand.
Yeah, it's a little off-brand. I've done a little bit of Marvel stuff. I've done a couple of Marvel movie reviews and some Marvel collectibles, but not very much. And
Not your bread and butter.
yeah, and while I think there is definitely some crossover between my audience and Marvel, like I also do cover Marvel Crisis Protocol. The audience for Star Wars is much more than the Marvel audience. So it's a maybe, but. Probably not. I'll say this. I hope not, because I hope we get enough more Star Wars gaming content that justifies me staying on brand as far as that's concerned.
Well, I haven't said it too publicly, but I'm pretty in support of AMG. I think it's a good move. So I'm excited. I just obviously there was all the drama that was going on with what was happening, but I think overall the long-term play, it's a good move.
I'm nervous. Because, I know some people are no longer employed and some people have retained employment and I've talked to a lot of those people.
The tragedy of it. That's the worst part of it. The good part is, I think Legion in particular, and you could speak to the other communities better than I ever could. I think Legion has an identity of deciding whether it wants to be supportive of casual play or not. Because I think the loudest and most vocal voices are all the competitive.
Oh,
side.
always.
Yeah. And I'm sure the other games have that too. But the one thing that AMG has done with their game is established that they absolutely recognize that the casual play is what actually drives sale of product.
Oh yeah,
and
no doubt.
They want to support the people who are buying the product, and competitive play is not that.
And competitive play is important because it does also 100%. Drive the game.
Yes,
the game wouldn't be good if it didn't have a casual or a competitive play like engine behind it. That's what makes the casual play so good, is that the stakes and the design it works there. Like all of my games are what I call casual competitive. Like we play with a good sporting attitude, and was your intention to do that? Yeah, I'll let you go back because you were friends or whatever. But at the same time, like the mechanics and everything being competitive minded is what makes it so good.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd just be playing Monopoly.
You still have to design the rules set in such a way that they're coherent, that they work, that there's an established, yes, this is how this is supposed to function. But at the same time, like you've got to make it fun and approachable. And I think Legion in particular, I think there's been a lot of keyword bloat.
I think Legion could use like a little bit of a cooling off period, maybe like a relax a little bit. And I always try to be that advocate for the casual in a lot of ways. While absolutely saying that competitive is important, I do a little bit of competitive events, but I usually don't compete in worlds and stuff like that. If I go to those big conventions, it's usually to talk about the games and to do the hype and the promotional stuff and do interviews and to stand in line to try to get the newest product at the booth when it's available. So
I can actually enjoy the convention I'm at.
Yeah. Oh, I also judging some of the tournaments and talking with players and stuff like that. Like that's that's where you and I met. So yeah, it's always a good time. We'll have to see what AMG really intends to do moving forward with all these other games. There's a whole lot. We have way more questions and we have virtually no answers. The only contact I've gotten from AMG was basically to kind of stand by. They'll let us know when they're ready to talk, and I have the assurances that I will hear from them when they're ready to speak to me. And that's
I've reached out on all channels, and I've gotten a few private from the couple of people that I do know who are actually there, but even then I don't have a lot of information. now.
I don't think anybody does right now.
That's a weird place to be in.
Yeah, this was all very sudden, and I believe that was by design. I think this. Yeah. I don't want to get too under the hood, but I think there was a lot of like, all right, the timing has to be now. It's 2020. There's a good excuse for not having organized play events, and this is the best time we're going to have to do it. Let's do it now. All these have been.
It sounds terrible, but I totally agree with you. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine this happening at another time. Like,
imagine if you had LVO actually kicking off in a month,
right.
and imagine
I would be much more frantic. I would be much more frantic right now because I wouldn't know who to talk to.
Yeah, who's your organized play? Where's your prize support coming from? What's going to happen with Worlds? Is the LVO still going to give you an invite to so many of those questions?
1 week prior to this happening, I sent out an email to organized play going, "Hey, is this going to be a grand championship?" Right? Like that is your scenario is real. It happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's so I think that's what drove the timing is just the way everything's been going. So. But I think this has been behind the scenes in the works for a while. But I think even
overnight.
No, but a lot of the people involved heard about it overnight. That's
unfortunate because those are people's livelihoods and careers.
Exactly. And then moving on, it's also going to affect our news cycle. Like there's going to be a production chain disruption at some point. And so we're going to have to get used to maybe going like Legion players may have to get used to getting only a wave every 3 months, or something like that, or
better than X-Wing ever had.
Armada's certainly at the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Sorry, I forgot I'm talking to an Armada player.
Yeah. We've certainly Armada has we're used to like if we get one a year, then that's on par.
Hey guys, we got one.
Yeah, and one of those years it was only an Imperial expansion. It was the Super Star Destroyer. Rebels didn't get anything, so they had to go 2 years.
Buy it so they know we're still here.
Yeah, so that was I think there'll be some balancing. I think it's probably really good for the Armada players in general. Although we did lose our lead developer, and actually the two lead developers, and it's not all at the same time because there were actually some layoffs earlier this year. So it's a lot of tough stuff, but hopefully 2021's a better year, and because this is a low bar. Yeah, it's not going to take much. It's kind of like when people said Episode 7 just has to be better than like the Jar Jar Banks of the prequels, and by most accounts it just wasn't that much higher than the bar. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it was okay," and then the drama after 7 or 8 and 9 happened, and then I loved 8.
Yep.
After like 3 rewatches, I was like, okay, now I love this movie because I felt like 8 they were saying, hey, it's going this direction. I'm like, I get it now. And then 9 they're like, no, we were never going that direction. We were going that direction. I'm like, and I was like, this whole trilogy sucks.
That's the biggest problem. Like if 8 had stuck to its guns and they had ridden that wave out, I would have been fine.
Or if 9 had stuck to 8's. The problem was that they didn't have one cohesive plan for the whole trilogy, and I don't blame Kathleen Kennedy or any I don't know who's in charge, but like
I blame Kathleen Kennedy, but that's a whole other.
I'll say this: if you're going to blame Kathleen Kennedy for that, you also have to praise her for The Mandalorian, because if the buck stops here, then it needs to stop here for everything. She has. I think if you're going to give her the criticism, you have to give her the credit also. I think that's only being fair. Because if she's the approving authority, then she, if nothing else, all right, you're allowed to be a critic, no doubt. But did she or did she not entrust The Mandalorian and basically give the keys to Star Wars to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni? Did she not put her trust in a good place there?
So, yes, I will say this was a good example of delegation.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's really what leadership at her level is. And at the same response, picking 3 different directors for one trilogy.
And my issues with Kathleen Kennedy aren't just that sequel.
I understand that there's other things too, and we I don't want to get too far into it because we're running out of time. But yeah, so like I take the good with the bad, and this is very good. This has been a great show. It's been a great season. Been a great 2 seasons, and they've been so good that I will accept a lousy Star Wars movie without much complaining at this point.
I want more of this, and I want less of sequel trilogy stuff. Is that, I mean, is that a fair thing to say? Like,
No, I think that's absolutely right. I don't know if you'll get all of that.
no.
I think we're going to get an interim. I think we'll get stuff around this timeline with the new shows that they've introduced. I think they're trying the High Republic era right now, and I don't know if that's going to have as much staying power as they want it to have.
I've heard rumblings about that one too, and a lot of them are Kathleen Kennedy related. And
well, it's all about, well, yeah, there's the thing about the dinosaurs or something like that. There was a whiteboard where they were doing ideas, and one of them had the word dinosaurs written on it, and people are just, some people are already like they've made up their minds that things are bad, so they're always going to be bad. And the good news is this show has gone a long way to kind of slap those people where it's like, no, it doesn't all have to be bad. Look at this.
And part of it, so I specifically don't watch trailers. I don't read too many articles when I can avoid it, leading up to a show. So whatever happens, I will try to remain as objective as possible and grade it based on what I see. Like,
Sure.
What is the end product? Judge it from there. And I hope I'm surprised, and I hope we get another Mando. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want.
I want that. I want more of, and to be fair, like if she's got the keys to everything, she's also been in charge of other good things like Rogue One and Star Wars Rebels too, which I loved. You know, really loved. And then to be fair, like the last season of Clone Wars was really good too.
I even like Solo. Like,
yeah, it was a quality film. I just didn't like the time fear. Like I don't like the backstory stuff because I knew they were all going to be safe. So I wasn't on the edge of my seat wondering if they were going to make the Kessel Run. Like, you know, so
right. It was always a question of how are they going to make the Kessel Run.
True. I'm more interested in seeing like what's going to happen when I have no idea. Like this episode, like we had no idea what was going to happen. So I was like, you know, I'm on the edge of my seat the whole time. So it's super exciting. And so I like storytelling like this, how it was all one cohesive story from beginning to end, as opposed to jumping around. And so that's what I'm. Granted, I like some of the new characters they introduced in Solo, and I think we're getting a Lando show that's going to continue some of that stuff. And I think Obi-Wan could potentially even run into Darth Maul when they do his show. So there's a lot of really good things coming. We've got a really bright future ahead of us as Star Wars fans. So with that, let's look forward to a great new year and some great new shows and movies or whatever else I'm coming. Brendon, I want to thank you so much for hanging out today, and thanks for chatting with me and everybody else. Thank you guys for watching. You got any final thoughts? I think I already said that, but
happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that fun stuff. Hopefully you guys are all safe out there. We'll all get through this, and hopefully we'll have some real events that we can actually run and go meet up and throw dice and play with plastic space dollies together and have a good time. So everybody's excited to start doing that again whenever that is, and
who knows? Hopefully soon. I'm hoping to get Gen Con this year, but I'm cautiously afraid that it probably isn't going to happen. But
we'll believe it when I hear it and see it when it happens. And in the meantime,
I'll be prepared for it not to happen. But
nobody has an excuse to have unassembled minis or unpainted minis at this point.
That is a fact, right?
You know.
All right, I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons as well. Be sure to check out all the links in the description below, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much, and as always, have a great day.